Yes. Saber Wolf. Ultra Combo! Killer Instinct.
Hello and welcome to episode 81 with the most ridiculously epic intro
I love that.
I've ever seen.
That was so good.
The launch trailer,
good.
really. You
know.
pulled
Yeah.
like the one KI trailer I didn't make.
That's so good.
Yeah, it was very
I love
epic. Now we're trying something a little new. We're using StreamYard
Yes.
instead of our normal setup. So we're still getting used to this. Apologies if there's any hiccups in advance, but hopefully we'll figure this out. But we're very lucky today, and I've realised we haven't done our what's going on. But it's me and Nick here, but we're joined by Maximillian dude, YouTuber, fighting game expert, and it's really cool.
So
Thanks
guys,
heaps for
sorry.
coming in,
I'm
Max.
tweeting out this thing so that I can get everyone on my end to jump in too, because I'm like, I can't easily host because I'm usually on Twitch. But thank you guys for having me. I appreciate it.
No,
Thanks heaps for coming on, mate.
it's awesome. It's we're a small channel in general terms, so to have someone that's been doing this for so long is really, really cool. And it's interesting how you've arrived here, right? Because we were doing our normal podcast, Nick's just doing his thing. We have a little segment called the Rumour Mill, which is when we hear these little things telling us stuff across the industry. And Nick had heard what he'd heard about Killer Instinct, in that previously it wasn't dead, i.e. Microsoft wanted to keep the franchise alive. And then, apparently it's in active development. And who should we see pop up in the chat with two googly eyes?
Someone tagged him on Twitter. It's like, you might want to check this out.
Yeah, I'm kind of at the point where I'm so closely associated with a couple of like big fighting game franchises. Like the number one is like Marvel versus Capcom. So I've kind of got my finger on the pulse of everything that's going on with Marvel versus Capcom. But also, like, close second is Killer Instinct. And like I've always mentioned to my audience, right, that people want me to champion like every fighting game. Like, I need you to do all of the support you did for those other fighting games for this one. And it's like, you know what? I'd love to, but it really comes down to the ones that I personally like, love, and have attachment to the most. And the big ones are obviously KI and Marvel versus Capcom.
Yeah. I could listen to you talk about KI all day. When you and Sajam do the commentary for the World Cup, it's the best. It's the absolute best.
And it's crazy how long KI has technically been a part of my life, because it was actually the fighting game when it came out on Super Nintendo that really got me into a fighting game community, right? Which is a much different identity than is known to nowadays. But back in like 1995, it was as many people you can find that were as good as possible, and you hunt them down, And like Killer Instinct was that game where I learned every character, every combo breaker, every glitch, every bug, everything. I broke my fingers were bleeding playing the game so much. I was like 11 years old, right? But that was the idea, is that that feeling that fighting games give you of like constant pursuit of getting better and everything like that. Killer Instinct was the first game that I was like, oh, I'm going 190% in on this. This game is my jam.
Yeah.
So I got a lot of deep attachment to KI, even the first one.
I remember quite fondly back in 2013 seeing your YouTube video reaction to the intro we just kind of riffed off of, right? Because it went dark and the drums came in.
That was
and
a
you just see your
reaction
face
video before like reaction videos were really big. When reaction videos when Xbox One was first being announced was essentially the Fine brothers on YouTube doing like group reacts, and like old people react to modern kid things and shit like that. Like, it was really weird that I remember putting the camera on myself during the initial Xbox One event. And that one wasn't great. That was, remember, TV. That was that one. And I was just like my raw reaction of like, this is so dumb. Like, nobody gives a shit. TV's not going to be relevant. And I haven't watched TV in so long. Like, and people liked that reaction. So all I did was, the next time events came on, I just put a camera on me, and that was it. And lo and behold, like the entirety of YouTube, gaming sphere of YouTube is like that now. So I just got lucky. I was ahead of the curve.
Yeah. I think people loved about it was that it was so sincere, right? And I think if we think back across the history of Killer Instinct since it was announced, let's be honest, referencing the TV era, Xbox One, it wasn't a great time for Microsoft. It wasn't a great time for the platform. It was a rough gen, to put it lightly. And it had an effect on KI, as great a game as it was, right? In terms of its adoption in the fighting game community, despite the fact that, and I think I've heard you make this argument, that it's still, to this day, one of the top tier, best netcode fighting games out there.
Absolutely.
Unbelievable.
Funny enough, Killer Instinct we'll just reestablish this modern Killer Instinct like 2013, when it was initially adopted by Double Helix at the start. Their model and release pacing of the game, how they would essentially approach the game's launch and then future updates, was the first of its kind. And it's the launch model / release model that every single fighting game since then has adopted. So Killer Instinct was actually the first game to do it. We're like the season pass thing where we're going to release characters over time and stuff like that. Instead of dropping a whole new version of the game on top of you, where it's like, you got to buy the Ultra or Arcade Edition. You had to spend 40 more bucks for this. Like, no, KI will be what it is when you buy it, if not the free version, right? Which was true.
Yeah.
And from that point forward, they would update it. And that at the time was weird and different. And I remember even I didn't like it. I'm like,
people knocked it.
It feels like KI is this like stepchild sort of game among other fighting games, where it's like you don't want to treat it like a big game, which is shockingly true. But that gave them the freedom to sort of like test stuff out. And because it was this little XBLA game when it came out, it gave them the freedom to sort of like Adam Icegreen and a lot of the guys at MS were able to test some stuff. And believe it or not, it worked. Like it worked to the point where every fighting game now copies it.
Yeah, exactly. It was a bit of a trendsetter, really. And I think, I mentioned it a second ago, the gen that Microsoft went through, Street Fighter being exclusive to PlayStation.
Sure.
The Xbox platform is arguably not the place, really, that a lot of fighting game fans would go. Right? I think that's a fair comment.
No. So for Xbox 360, it was. Xbox 360 was actually the home for the fighting game community because the PlayStation 3 version of fighting games sucked. They ran at incomparable frame rates. They ran at lower resolutions. They had bugs and things because the PS3 was just a harder platform to work for. While games like the big Capcom games like Street Fighter and Marvel vs. Capcom had less input delay and were just overall better on Xbox hardware. But I mean that existed because Xbox had access to a much easier system to develop for and way more RAM that they can utilize. And then suddenly in the next generation, what happens? The next box, the Xbox One, didn't have nearly as much as the PlayStation 4 did at launch. So naturally, everything switched over to PlayStation again. Yeah. And then Microsoft luckily had their own, first party game. But man, those launch, to me, it felt like the only game at launch of like the Xbox One that was getting moderately good reviews and people were kind of happy about was Killer Instinct.
Killer Instinct.
Agreed.
I did love Rise though. I know it didn't review well, but I loved Rise and Dead Rising 3.
Right? I'll agree with you. Rise was actually kind of, I'm like, this game is pretty sick. Like, what a gorgeous game. But I felt after a few missions, like, it's not changing. Like, I'm kind of, the set pieces are changing, but nothing else really is enough to the point where it's like grabbing me. But I feel like in terms of like, damn, a trailer game, Rise is like one of the best trailer games you could have had for the Xbox One.
Yeah, we've made the comment before. It was almost like the kind of, your standard big hitter, third person over the shoulder, narrative driven game. It just needed a lot longer in the oven and a little bit more variety. The same barbarian 12 times in a row. It was a little much.
And maybe a little ahead of its time because that would essentially become PlayStation's ID,
Correct.
third person action adventure.
Hilariously so.
Xbox kind of was on top of that, but they were a little too early,
Yeah. Absolutely.
So a couple of super chats, just quick ones.
We have,
Kate
we're missing them.
Yeah, bro, you're literally at 9.99k subs.
That's
Faisal,
true.
welcome, Max. Have a great show, gents. Thanks very much, Faisal. Should we quickly, because I know our time with Max is limited. He's a very busy man. Should we just breeze through some of the news items?
Yeah, I mean, sure. we will do, but before we do, do you guys want to talk a little bit about that rumor, the big rumor
Nah, because we want Max to dive in properly. So we'll go through the news and then we'll talk about KO.
All right, you want to spend maximum
I wanted
time.
to tell Max when he left the Discord. I was like, oh no, I want to tell him so bad about Killer Instinct that he's left.
There was a moment where I had been joining like so many Discords for like all this stuff. And then at some point during some stream, like my settings reset and everything was making a ton of noise. I'm like, I just got fucking get rid of it. It's just like in a fit of rage, just fury deleting, like fury leaving all of these servers and stuff. So
I sent my mate Chris a DM because he was going to be on the stream today because he loves KI as much as I do. So he really wanted to be on, but he couldn't. And I sent him a DM saying, oh my God, dude, like back in June, I'm like, KI's coming back. He's like, no way. I'm like, I want to tell Max. And then I went to look and it's like, oh no, he's gone. I wanted to tell him so bad. But that's all right. We've got him now.
Yeah. And we have just hit 10,000 subscribers live on which is a really cool milestone. I know that's, small fry nowadays for you, Max.
I still remember when I hit 10K, much less 20K on YouTube, man. That it was a while ago, but those were big milestones.
Yeah, I mean, you're sitting over
almost 1.5 mil,
something like that.
Yes,
and it definitely has gotten to the point where we're growing a fighting game channel. In comparison to other fighting game YouTubers that are like getting there, I think there's finally another direct like fighting game YouTuber that isn't specifically like Smash Brothers, which is almost its own thing. Just crossed 1 million, and his big focus is NRS games, so NetherRealm Studios.
Wow.
And his name is Super. He just crossed 1 million, and it was a big milestone for him. And I tried to help him out as much as possible to get there. But he's in sort of the same boat I am, where it's like you plateau really hard, and growing a channel beyond 1 million subs is difficult, which means you have to sort of like branch out and try new things and all this kind of stuff, but still keep it fighting game focused.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing, right? Fighting games, it is a niche in and of itself.
Yeah.
But, kudos for all the hard work. How long did it take you to get that far? Like, where did you start? You joined YouTube?
I started making fighting game videos in 2007, so it took 14 years.
Wow. That's a lot of hard work, right?
Yeah, and by the time I got like partnered eventually, I think I was at probably like 8,000 subscribers. So that was like 2011. I had about 8,000 subscribers.
Wow. What a climb.
Okay.
It's not bad.
Steady. Yeah, I've never had moments where like my exposure, popularity, whatever you want to call it, like made giant spikes.
Yeah.
Because the fighting game space just doesn't really have that. Maybe I think that's happened to Smash Brothers, right? Where people are super into Smash, and the audience for that is so big that it's just massive, right? The next biggest thing is obviously NetherRealm Studios games, but when it comes to like Capcom fighting games, the space can only get so big, and it really peaked around the early 2010s, early to mid 2010s, pre Street Fighter V for the most part, and ever since then, it's just been like an exploration of what fighting games I really love, which ones I would like to explore, and trying to get other people to play them, because that's the goal. Is that even if I don't love this thing and I'm checking something out, there's a good chance I might introduce somebody to it that ends up loving it.
Yeah. And that's often how I find things, right? So, we're going to go through very quickly news of the week. We'll just chat through some stuff, because you might have some comments on some of this, Max. It is a Xbox-focused platformy podcast anyway. But the most interesting thing I think we heard is about two. It kind of links back to two different rumors, funnily enough. This is just a very rumor-focused episode. So the first is that apparently ID, or id, I always say ID, id Software is hiring for a long-running action FPS.
Oh, really? Are they?
Now, earlier this year, we heard, before we saw the Quake remasters announced at QuakeCon,
yes,
we heard that Quake was being rebooted. As in like Doom Eternal. So it's interesting to read that again. Is it Doom? I would say Doom 3, Doom 6. I don't know. Where are we now with numbers? What do you think?
That seems a little too early, right? It's a little too early for another Doom.
It does feel a bit too early. I feel like they have said everything they need to say about Doom now.
Well, at the time, I'd been told that the Quake reboot, I think Machine and id were involved. like both. So I don't know. How many long-running action FPSs do id have? 2?
Not many.
3? Rage?
Yeah. Well,
Doom,
let's not. I don't want another Rage.
Quake. So,
and usually, I mean, in terms of this industry, the gauge of interest happens before the big reveal, right? And obviously, a Quake remaster / reveal is an early gauge of interest for social media engagement and pre-orders and stuff like that.
Yeah. How many downloads did it get? How many people played it?
Yep.
There was some good buzz around it.
Yeah.
Because I would like to think that, making a new Quake would be huge and exciting and really cool. But not everyone grew up in the same time we did. So suddenly Quake coming back might not have nearly as much appeal because it hasn't been around. I think I've heard more of the Quake engine than I have of Quake over the past like 20 years practically, you know?
Thanks to COD.
Yeah.
Yeah, I keep forgetting Call of Duty is on the Quake engine, or it used to be.
It's
very heavily
bastardized.
Yeah, wow. It's crazy how these things go around. The other interesting long-running FPS rumor, and this one's been going on for a while. We all remember when we saw the GoldenEye Xbox Live Arcade remake screenshots, and then it was in legal hell for a while, and it never came to light. Well, again, earlier this year, or was it last year now? I can't remember.
I think it was earlier this year. There was some sort of trademark renewal or something. Yeah. And now, just I think in the last few days, and I haven't got the link in front of me, but I think it was Nintendo or someone filed a renewal, or they applied for GoldenEye to be removed from the unsuitable for minors list in Germany or something like that.
Oh, weird.
Yeah, which is something you don't do if you're not intending on doing something.
Yeah.
So, I mean, there's been a lot of talk around GoldenEye. We've spoken about it. Look, everyone wants GoldenEye to come back. With Nintendo launching the 64 games for Nintendo Switch, we saw Banjo come. It would be odd for Microsoft to allow Banjo on Nintendo Switch.
There's clearly a relationship there that's building, which is good.
Yeah.
Because now it's everybody against Sony,
Yeah.
Seems that way.
Look, I may have heard a little while back that we might be seeing GoldenEye again. I may have heard a little while back.
But the question is, and I think this is the concern mentioning Nintendo, is that a lot of people are seeing Nintendo rolling out this N64 online edition, which is rather shockingly priced, but that's just my opinion. And is it just, can you imagine a world where it just comes to that? I mean, Rare developed the game.
I suspect what I had heard about was the Xbox Live Arcade remake, not the Nintendo 64 thing.
Did 4J do the remake like the ones that did? They did Perfect Dark, right?
Yeah. I don't know if it was the comeback. I don't know if it would be that exact one. I don't know if they're going to do a whole new one, or if it would just be that one tweaked because it wouldn't come out on 360, obviously.
No,
that would. Yeah, so it would either be ported or something like that. That because it was finished. Whatever 4J had done was finished. It leaked on the net earlier this year. People have been downloading it and playing it on their PCs.
You'd imagine all the response from it, and all of that probably is a big motivator.
Yeah, well, we were talking about it at the time. I had Jeff Grubb on, and he and I were discussing it, and we said, like, if it's leaking on the internet, you're losing money by not selling it.
Yeah.
Because people are just downloading it now and playing it on their PCs. You may as well release it officially and make some bloody money off the thing.
Yeah.
Everyone wants it. Like, why wouldn't you? The port's done. Just work it out, whatever you got to work out, and release it.
Yeah, I'd love to, slip into Odd Job's shoes again. He was my height, so I'm fine with that. I know a lot of people, Odd Job was like, if you chose Odd Job and you were playing split screen, you were a jerk. I know that was kind of like, because he was shorter than everyone else for the hitbox. But
and aiming up and down wasn't exactly super easy.
No.
Mostly, you're just turning left and right and shooting. You know?
Have any of you ever tried to pick up an N64 pad after not touching it for like 15 years?
Yeah.
Because I swear to God, I used to be so good at Perfect Dark on the N64. Like I was like, wow, I'm incredible. I
have incredible memories of playing 007 Agent Under Fire on PlayStation 2 with friends, like 4-player split screen, and we were amazing at that. Grappling hooking here, like shooting rockets from midair across the whole map, hitting targets and stuff like that. Man, I remember being amazing at this game. But everything post Call of Duty 4 has destroyed all of those memories. Like you are an alien in a weird, uninhabitable world when you hold a controller on an ancient FPS game. It's just like, what the fuck?
I can't compute how my brain used to be able to do it.
I know.
That's what
and
blows
Dreamcast
my mind.
as well.
Perspective is a bitch.
Oh, yeah. Like, I remember I booted up my Dreamcast a long, long time ago and chucked MDK2 in. And I'm just like, wait, how do I look up and down? There's no other analog stick. I've got to use my buttons to look up and down and stuff. It's like, oh my God, I can't believe we did this for that. And we enjoyed it.
You had to use the buttons to go forward, down, left, and right. Yeah.
Yeah. And then, oh man, wow. And we loved that shit too. Like we loved it.
But we had no perspective, you know? At the time, that was the only way you did it. So it's like.
Yeah.
Yep.
Pretty much. Now, the only other thing I think that is worth quickly gliding over before we really get into the meat and potatoes of Killer Instinct and what and who a potential remake, etc., might be. We saw more Halo randomly earlier.
Out of nowhere.
Was it this week? It was. It feels like it was last week. I've had a very long week. So it was Monday, I think. It just dropped. Halo Infinite campaign, amazing, I thought. But what do you guys think? Were you as impressed as I think 343 hoped that you would be, or is it more a case of you were like, okay, it's better, but is it not good enough? What were your opinions, impressions?
I guess I'll go first. I mean, for me personally, that previous demonstration, the one that essentially made them decide, okay, we're delaying this bitch. That demo definitely didn't impress. It didn't look like a game that was specifically next gen compared to what, like, you stuck that next to a Demon's Souls trailer and it's just like, what the hell? Something is definitely wrong. And now I think it has absolutely shaped up to be something that looks next generation, right? It took them a year into next gen to do it, but the fact that they committed to it and they didn't release a product that was eventually going to hit their fiscal that they needed to, and just bite the bullet and prey on Games Pass, right? They stuck to it, and I think it's showing what an extra year practically of polish will do to a game. And it's important. Polish is like arguably more important now for the current generation of games than most of, like, I'd argue it's just as important as some of like the prototyping phases and alpha phases and everything else that happens during development. Like Agreed. It's maybe before not as much, maybe in the Xbox 360 era not as much, but now it's really, when people can investigate things so hard, it's really important.
Yeah. I really loved everything I saw. I know, and Nick, I'm going to risk landing you in some controversy here. I know when you originally saw it, I'm going to do it because, you know, I'm your pal and this is kind of my job. We all saw the original trailer. We were a bit like, I need to rewatch that again. And then, you know, we reacted much like the rest of the community last year. You've seen the new one. You perhaps didn't think it was as much of a glow up as you were expecting. Is that a fair paraphrasing?
I was on our Halo podcast the other day. We were talking about it. Look, it's an improvement. Don't get me wrong. Like, it's a noticeable improvement. Because I was under the impression initially, like many of us were, that the delay was for the visuals, because that's where the harshest reaction was. I just didn't think that the difference was befitting of a 1 year delay. Like, we keep getting told how games come together in the last 3, 4, 5, 6 months. Like, games really come together at the end. So to me, the difference looked like that. It looked like as if the game had come together between July 2020 and November 2020, as opposed to a full year and a bit. It still looks good. Don't get me wrong. It does look nice.
Yeah. I don't want anyone to take you incorrectly. I understand what you mean.
I feel like Infinite is one of those games that, because it's changing so much from what the previous ones were, like the streaming capabilities of their engine had to be put to the test because they have bigger environments. Like the overall direction and structure of how the game even functions is going to be dramatically different than the previous games. It reminds me a lot of like Elden Ring, which is most likely the issues that FromSoft was running into, why Elden Ring was talked about and delayed so much. I mean, even outside of the pandemic issues, I think a lot of it boils down to this isn't the way they normally make games. Suddenly they're making these giant environments and huge open worlds that have to be interacted with and functional. And suddenly they're having to fix issues that we don't even know what the hell's going on. Like when the game is functioning on a completely different level, like it's a different beast. And suddenly you feel like you have to start all over again.
Yeah, I can agree with that. And I think as well, there's a lot of disparity. People go, oh, why doesn't it look as good as, and pick an open world game that looks really pretty, Division, whatever. And really, Halo does a lot of things, and I don't think a lot of people particularly take this into account. All the physics interactions, all the objects flying around.
100%.
There's a lot more going on because it's so much more of a driven sandbox type of game than perhaps something like The Division or Far Cry, etc., etc.
Yeah.
That I think that there's definitely a lot, and I think this is why co-op campaign. The more I saw of that, the lack of co-op at launch started to sting even more because gameplay wise, what I saw, I absolutely loved. I thought it just ticked all of my boxes.
It looks super engaging, yeah.
And then I was really sad that I don't get to jump in with friends and play around in that big sandbox, right? But hey,
that's a whole other part of it now that they got to figure out. Something you would think that, but they did this many times before, and it's like, dude, the industry is not full of you just throw money at it and it works.
Yeah.
Like Microsoft has been doing that with a lot of projects for a very long time to some interesting results, and maybe not always get the result that you were maybe expecting. And I think Infinite is like a good example of that. Like, especially what we saw like last year, where it's like, this game probably cost so much absurd amount of money. It's insane. And for it to look like this is a perfect example of like, the industry is made by, these games are made by people, right? They're not made by committees. They essentially boil down to, we don't have the people that know how to work our engine to do this. They have to learn how to do this shit, man. Yeah. So we can't just go poach somebody from like Activision or Ubisoft that knows how to do open world because they're not going to know what the hell to do with what we have. So
it's fascinating to see it all come together. And hey, for everyone watching, we've got like 4 weeks and a bit. I mean, that sounds crazy to say, but it's true. 4 or 5 weeks-ish, something like that, 40-something days.
Can't wait.
It's going to be a fun time. I'm having a LAN party, doing multiplayer for 4 days
probably.
Living in my own filth. Really looking forward to it. No wife, no kids.
I've heard such good things about the multiplayer too. Like that last beta apparently killed it. People loved it.
Yeah. It was so good.
It's up there as, Halo 5 was really great in terms of as a multiplayer game. And I think Infinite straddles the perfect line between bringing in people that preferred that Halo 3 or Halo CE style kind of art, etc., but with very modern, very slick. It just feels good to play. I can't wait.
I love the big team battle stuff. I've always loved it. So when I heard that, like, there's like 32, 24 player like big team
24.
battle, I'm like, really?
Yeah, 12v12, and it
all
feels,
right. Like even that's a lot. Like they took that away from Call of Duty like many years ago until even just recently they started adding it back in, and now Call of Duty is going all 32 versus 32, which is awesome because it's on smaller maps. I truly love the chaos of first-person shooters, multiplayer. So I'm really excited to play, to actually give it a shot.
Yeah, it's interesting. I played a little bit of the Battlefield 2042 beta, and I was discussing this with a friend of mine. 128 players, and I'm like, it's just a number at that point. Like it's so large. Like I don't feel I can have this like my own player agency.
It's because
I prefer
it's segmented.
smaller. Yeah,
like the map is so big that that number doesn't really mean anything anymore. There's so many like proxy fights happening across the entire map that one doesn't really have an impact on the other.
Yeah,
where you're practically playing in like different lobbies.
Yeah. It's really odd.
Specifically, jump in a plane and go over there, right?
Exactly, and Halo BTB is still great in that you can stick on a squad but you're still having that overall effect. You can feel everything that's going on within that map. So it's going to be great. It's 5 weeks, guys. We'll make it. Anyway, so
can't wait.
We've got that's pretty much the news of the week. There's probably some other things.
Yeah.
But, you know, we're here to talk about Killer Instinct. We have arguably the expert on Killer Instinct. If you haven't subbed, watched Max's deep dives into all of the background of Killer Instinct, and I think you're quite a large proponent on this platform, right? And if anything, I'm more surprised that if there is a game in active development, you're not a part of it. I think that's fair to say, right? I
thought the same thing.
Yeah, I mean, hashtag bring back KI. You pushed this really, really hard, and it would genuinely. I think I said it on the podcast when Nick said the rumor. It would surprise me that they've not reached out and said, who should we have from a community lead point of view or a feedback point of view? I wonder if there's anyone out there.
We've had a couple of pretty successful fighting game focused Twitter like hashtag campaigns that I guess I'll call them. And a couple years ago was hashtag bring back KI, and now recently hashtag free Marvel vs. Capcom 2. And I very specifically chose time frames related to I'll just say moments that I think would be good to rally support, right? And Killer Instinct was right around that time frame, even though it was a couple years ago, where based on some things I was hearing, I'm like, time to rally the troops. If this is a situation where people need to, this is about getting something made, right? This is about people that are in decision-making processes to realize that you can make money. Like it's people say like, but they're just going to jump in and do something and just try to make a quick buck. Like I want that. Like, right. I want them to jump in and realize that there's an opportunity and a lot of people that would be willing to spend money for these things to exist. Right. This is the tough part with like classic games, even where people, there's clearly a market here. It would easily make money, but nobody wants to commit to it. It doesn't have a champion. So KI around 2019, I definitely had an inclination that this is a good moment to do this. Time to rally the troops and see how many people love KI, and let's see if we can show it. And guess what? Everybody showed up, and a ton of people showed up, and the support was ridiculous. And we held tournaments and we held events, and there were 40,000 something people watching even a recent hashtag bring back KI tournament that we held earlier this year in February. So those are some, I didn't think that would breach our Marvel versus Capcom events on Twitch, but it did. It actually got more viewership. Wow. So a lot of people give a shit about KI and enjoy watching.
It's so fun to watch.
7-8-year-old game. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So in the same way, like
game to watch.
With Marvel vs. Capcom 2, there were very specific timings that I wanted to do this to try to get some eyes and ears in the places that they needed to be. And I honestly hope, I really hope that this had an impact, because I'm not lying, man. One of the most like frustrating things that I remember happening was learning that Banjo-Kazooie made it into Smash Brothers because a ton of people told Phil to put Banjo into Smash on Twitter. Like that was the actual backstory of it happening. So I'm like, so we can't get a new Killer Instinct.
You just got to tweet. Oh, yeah, there you go.
So we can't give Killer Instinct like a little bit of a tiny bit of like a budget this time, because I mean, I think it's been wildly, well, the documentaries and everything that have been made about KI now, I think it's been wildly understood. And even someone that worked in the game, that the game was very, it was a little XBLA game. This was not, this was like, you remember that there was like a Hydro Thunder game. I use this example. There's like a Hydro Thunder game that came out around the same time on Xbox 360, right?
Yep.
Killer Instinct would arguably have a similar budget, if not less than that. So this game was started and made, that's talking like initially like Double Helix. This game was started by people that just really gave a shit and saw that they had like an opportunity, and they knocked it out of the park. And then the people that took it forward, which was Iron Galaxy, knocked it out of the park again. It was like a combination of just spiritual alignment that got all these things to happen. But moving KI forward is a different story now. Like that game was successful, and a lot of people, 10 million plus downloads back in 2017. That was 4 years ago. They were at 10 million downloads. It's a big deal, regardless if the game was free or not. That's a big fucking number, man. So I don't know. To me, it's like, if you want to move KI forward, and if you want to take it into something that is like a new generation, nobody's going to work for just as much money as they used to.
That's right.
You know, all these systems and stuff that fighting games have now are not cheap to make. So Microsoft has to like pony up. They have to be willing to approach this game not as a tiny little XBLA game and just pray that people give a shit enough to just dedicate their life to it and want to like have an impact, because they already got that twice with Iron Galaxy and Double Helix.
Yeah. And I guess from a development perspective, and I think this is my concern. And full disclosure, I am not a fighting game fan, mostly because I'm terrible at them, right? And I have low patience and I get angry very easily. So I'm not particularly personally invested on it. From a platform point of view, it would be wonderful for Microsoft to realize its potential. It serves
to have their own Smash Brothers.
Yeah, absolutely. And Nick's made this argument before that it is the Xbox Smash Brothers. There's so much opportunity. I can see a super chat in the chat that kind of touches on this. We'll get to it in a second.
Yeah.
But my concern is Double Helix and what they made was so great, and no one expected it out of Double Helix. This unknown studio, untested in this genre. Boom! Suddenly they came out with this great netcode. It felt good to play. It looked good.
Strider was good.
Strider was good.
Great that they made.
Yeah, that was being made in house at the same. I can tell you because I was working on the KI trailers with Double Helix in house, and I was an unpaid consultant. Pretty much because they didn't have the budget for any of it, but they did have the budget to eventually hire me to do trailers, so that's what I did.
That's awesome.
But when it came to testing things, I remember when Counterbreaker came online, they're like, let's see how Max reacts to this, and there was this sort of inherent thing of see what Max has to say about this thing, because I would just drive 3 hours down to their office just to give it a shot, because I was like, oh hell yeah, I was just super into it.
Yeah.
So I mean, obviously because it was KI and being around all of that with Strider literally right next door. Strider's my favorite fighting game character of all time. I'm like, where am I? Really? What is my life right now? This is so cool. Wasn't being paid for much, but I mean, just to feel like you were a part of something that the devs cared about, making fans, if not me, happy, because I was obviously their demographic, right? They essentially had a free focus testing every single time I went down there to check shit out.
Yeah, and then obviously it gets moved over to Iron Galaxy, and they successfully, and think about where we've seen studios pick up another person's work and actually pull it off. We were just talking about Halo. This is 343's third attempt, and they've made some blunders, right? Let's be fair. But yet somehow Iron Galaxy came in and they pulled it off, and they improved upon, and they added to. And I guess my overarching question is there concern from you that if it is in active development, whose hands is it in, and are they the right hands to bring the game back to the level it already was in 2013?
He is worried. If it's happening, he is worried. Don't worry, I watched this.
It's the number one concern of mine. Actually,
there you go.
It's the main concern of mine. Is you can't release another Killer Instinct game, and suddenly the netcode isn't as good as the previous game.
That would be bad.
Killer Instinct was one of the first games to really define quality online net play, where its systems work, and they work pretty dang well. Even its lobby had big issues for a long time, its lobby systems, but they eventually added recent patches that actually fixed it. So this is the challenge that KI has set upon itself, right? That Microsoft, I think, kind of has, where I sort of relate to what Phil said when he was on another podcast, when everybody was asking him about Killer Instinct suddenly, and even the podcast guys were like, okay, so we just have to ask you, Phil, what's going on with KI, off script. And he had a response that I truly believe, where he's like, we want to find the right people to make the game. We didn't forget about it. We need to find the right people to make this thing happen. And everyone was sort of under the impression, and me too, that could be Iron Galaxy, that they're just waiting for Iron Galaxy to be finished with what they are working on, because they've been working on something for a while. So it was under my impression that, that's great. You know what? That's actually a great situation, that they're just going to wait for IG, and IG brings the band back together, and they kick ass. Great. They actually get a big budget to make a new KI. That'd be amazing. But the more it seems from, the rumor, if all this stuff does end up happening, that might not be the case. So, and it's not NetherRealm. It's definitely not NetherRealm. They're plenty busy with their own things.
Yeah.
No. I had whenever we've discussed it in the Discord, which we have many times, I've always worked under the assumption that Iron Galaxy aren't doing it. So my preferences would have, because obviously Double Helix is no longer a thing.
No, they're not.
My preferences would have been either Dimps or Enway, but I don't know if Enway are a big enough studio to handle what KI needs to be now.
They're pretty small.
Yeah,
They're essentially a mobile developer that moved into console development with Power Rangers Battle for the Grid. But
that's a good game.
I would be very surprised if Enway was taking KI, just because I don't know if they have the assets to pull off like a big budget fighting game. Like I just don't know if they have the systems, to be honest. Like or the engine expertise, to be honest. Because I think Power Rangers still runs on their mobile engine on console.
Oh wow!
I think so. I would have to get confirmation because I've had some friends that have worked there. So I don't know. I'd have to find out.
Oh wow!
But even like you have to think about like how risky that is. Like say Enway got the contract for KI, right? And then Microsoft's asking for all this stuff and all these online functionality things and all these systems and stuff that, granted, Power Rangers does do, so it could possibly do it. But the huge amount of increase as far as like how many characters will have to be available, how visually that game is going to have to behave. You would like to think that if Microsoft is going to reintroduce a Killer Instinct, it's not going to look like a AA game. You know, it's probably going to have to look pretty good.
Yeah, you'd want all the bells and whistles, right?
It might. I honestly like if they're trying to compete with Sony, where everything Sony puts out that is first party, if that's like the goal of theirs, everything Sony puts out looks like it's beyond movie quality and stuff like that, then they sort of got a harsh reminder with Halo Infinite that, okay, all right, yeah, we get it, man. Like we're gonna have to buckle down and make this thing look good. And I think they did a pretty good job with that. Yeah. So you can't just like jump into it and expect a new KI to look like the old one. Right?
Yeah, that's right.
Arguably, the old 2013 KI looks better than Power Rangers in many ways because Power Rangers has had a long time to even get to the visual part that it is right now.
Yep.
If you would have to like drop so much money into expanding that studio and possibly build a new studio, you have to like go rent new studio property. If you think it from Enway's front, that's super risky because if this doesn't work out and we get one season and they don't like it, what happens to our company? We're literally stuck in a brand new studio we can't pay for anymore, and all these employees that are doing nothing. Like that's super risky. So
it's a fascinating.
It does not seem like a possibility to me.
Yeah. With me, it was more. I wanted a studio that could handle KI systems. Like, so in my head, it was always either Dimps or Aiting. I thought Aiting did Marvel vs. Capcom 3, combo heavy, all that sort of stuff. So I thought maybe they can handle KI. Because for me, yes, it has to be visually nice and everything like that. But for me personally, the most important part was keeping those systems intact.
Gameplay.
The counters, the breakers, the shadow counters.
I completely agree.
All that sort of stuff has to stay intact.
I would like to hope that Microsoft fully understands the mechanics of KI are truly what makes it special. The fact that everything somehow comes together because the mechanics allow it to be so is truly something special, especially in the fighting game verse, that allows people to have character expression, that allows people to play games a huge different ways, where it focuses more on the mind game instead of like the execution at a front level. But at the high level, there's absolutely a ton of execution and the game gets super like these are the things that the hardest thing for a fighting game to do is to be visually striking, easy to play, hard to master. Those are hard things to balance. Absolutely. And Killer Instinct did it. It actually did it with teams that had not made a ton of fighting games before, right? So I think it was that fresh take on of it that allowed them to do it. So those systems kind of got to go forward. I think you in my opinion, there is room for Killer Instinct to be to be more accessible, right? Because KI eventually became pretty hard to play. It's actually a very hard fighting game to be good at because there's so many characters and so much stuff to remember. There's a definite approach for fighting games to become more accessible. The problem is with a lot of fighting games nowadays, it's all about the accessibility and that's it. And they hyper focus on just making it easier to play for newcomers. And we're going to make it easier for newcomers to beat veterans. The world doesn't work that way. Doesn't matter. You can make anything as easy as it's possible, and it's going to have the sweatiest, try-hard butt lords that are going to be playing it forever, and they're just going to get into it. And you're not going to stop that. It's an unsolvable issue. What you can do is simplify but expand. You can make things easier to do, but give players more options, right? Suddenly, you can do more things with combos than before. You can maybe do more things in the air or more things with enders. I don't know. Like, that's generally the approach that fighting games have, where it's better if you simplify stuff as long as it's expanded. If you're expanding what you can do with these characters in this game, then we're cool.
Yep.
Yeah,
I think that's true. And I think I'm going to use this kind of pause to segue into another variant of Killer Instinct. And we were speaking, and you mentioned Smash Brothers a little bit earlier on this evening, and, you know, how huge that game is. I think just before we went on air. We got a super chat here from Edward King, £10. I'm hoping that's representing hitting 10,000 subscribers. Thank you, everyone, for watching. Hey, guys, if the new KI game releases, would you be open with Microsoft including a lot of their own characters like Master Chief, Doomslayer, or use them as DLC and just keep the core fighters? Now, Nick's made this point before that Killer Instinct could effectively be Microsoft's Smash Brothers. You just because you've got Battletoads in there, you've got Ram.
It was already getting there.
Yeah.
Why not?
But they've got to be careful. They can't go overboard with it, because in the end, it's still Killer Instinct. It's not Smash Brothers. It's still KI. So obviously the core fighters all carry forward. But again, maybe I'm wrong. Max would be the better voice on that than I would be. But I don't think you want to saturate the game with too many guest characters. I don't think.
I mean, I feel like there needs to be a proper balance. Like, you can't just start throwing in Microsoft representatives left and right. Like, Minecraft dude would not be a good mix in KI. Like, I feel like that fits Smash Brothers a lot more. So you have to be haphazard about this. To me, yes, this is definitely a game that should act as a platform to highlight Microsoft properties and characters that have existed or currently exist now, especially since Microsoft owns way more licensing and properties than they have ever before, to really explore some of that stuff. Everyone wanted Doomslayer in Smash Brothers, right? It technically happened in the form of a costume, but what if that was a Killer Instinct character? Feels like he fits a bit better in KI, you know, considering
oh god,
Doomslayer,
could you imagine?
Arguably is a Microsoft character at this point.
Yes.
So I feel like there's a lot of avenues like Joanna Dark and stuff like that just work. Like this would just be so cool to have them in a fighting game of some kind. And obviously it has shown that you can even venture into the more cartoony and weird. We have a frog that is wearing glasses, you know, and they made it work. Like the tone of that actually works. Like I've always used this as example where I feel, I wonder if I can put it in the chat, where it's like Banjo-Kazooie could work in KI, but just Google Banjo and Kazooie in real life, and you'll start seeing the images of exactly what I'm talking about.
Like a real bear with a bird.
And this giant condor thing on his back, and they work together and they beat your ass.
Amazing. Yeah. I'd love it. I'd love to see that.
I'd love Joanna. Joanna could play a bit like Deadpool in Marvel vs. Capcom 3. With the dual guns, and very, very similar to Deadpool. I reckon that'd be great. I'd love to see that.
But yeah, I completely agree that it's like a platform that allows Microsoft to literally promote other titles that are coming out to be a natural marketing tool to pitch other games, much less get people from other games into their game. Because I mean, I don't think MS cares which side makes money as long as they're making money. The other thing I would mention related to it, like being a Microsoft thing now, if there is a new Killer Instinct, it should be free to play.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I don't see a world where it's not going to be. I mean,
and possibly not like the free to play that KI originally did, where, you know, Killer Instinct was one rotating character that was free.
Yeah.
And then you had to like buckle down and spend like $20 to get the core roster. No, I mean, like, the game should be free to play, possibly. Yes. Things like that. The game should be free to play, but allow you to pick specific characters. Like, approach it like other free to play games have approached it. I think that would be. Yeah, that's the future for fighting games, man. As reluctant, devs are super worried about that being the case because the fighting games are naturally a risky venture, so they want to see their return of investment like immediately. But yeah, if you want to support it for a long time and actually have it be this thing that grows, free-to-play fighting game is the way to go.
Yeah, and a high-budget one that is fair and doesn't all, you know, pay to win and stuffed with cosmetics, but is just, you know, balanced well and plays well. That could do really, really well out there.
It's what League of Legends is going to do. It's what's going to happen.
For sure. Like, I know people might be a bit disturbed by the flashing image of a realistic bear
and the bird.
You know, we're like we said, we're testing out StreamYard tonight. It's the first time we're using it. expect some hiccups. You know, it's all okay.
If you squinted your eyes while it was flashing, it became 3D. You just missed out on the opportunity.
It was actually a magic eye.
Yeah, it was a real life thing.
Yeah. Oh man.
Oh shit. Okay.
Okay.
Now we've still got Max for a little bit longer, so should we hit Patreon?
I know that there's some community questions for Max. Now, for our patrons, if you're new to this podcast, we've been watching for a while, we always take a moment to thank our patrons because they enable us to do so much. There's too many of you now for me to read out loud. So look at this. I don't have to say any of this. I could.
It was
but
too
I'm not
many
gonna.
to read. It was getting too much to read them all out. So we just did a banner at the bottom, and there you go, guys. You can see yourselves at the bottom now, and we don't have to like read out all those names like we used to, because Max, we started with like a handful of patrons, so we're like, this is easy. We can read out 5 patron names. Now it's at like a lot more than that, so it's becoming too much to read them all.
I definitely have been in this situation where, oh my god, I'm spending most of the stream reading names.
Yeah. So if you're listening to the audio version right now, and you know that's how you've always listened to it, and you're a patron, I'm sorry and I love you nonetheless. But yeah, so you know, like I said, StreamYard, new things. We'd love the feedback. We want to hear if you like this new modern produced era or not. So definitely let us know in the Patreon lounge, which you can get access to by being a Patreon on the XboxEra forums. Now, the second part we do after our Patreon is we let our patrons in that section of the forum ask ourselves or our guests community questions. Funnily enough, Max, there's quite a few specifically being thrown at you because you're here. So as we've got you for a limited amount of time, and I know we'll try and run this as close to the wire as we can.
Yeah, let's pump through.
Sure.
I'll try and let Nick target the ones that specifically are asking you a question, and then if you have to dash, hopefully we would have got them the answers that they're looking for.
Yeah, that's the way to do it. We'll go with the KI focused Max ones first. Okay.
Yeah.
Let's go. So we'll go with Hexa first then. Okay. Hey all, thanks for coming on the show, Max. What's your guys' favorite season of characters, 1, 2, or 3, and what is your favorite character from that season? If I can ask another question for Max, I'm sure you've played Capcom versus SNK too. So I was curious, where do you think you'd rank it in your top fighting games list? It's probably my second favorite fighting game behind KI due to its character customization with changing the colors of the clothes and character skins and different use of gauges. Plus, the roster is huge. Kaio was my favorite fighter. Fun fact, Kaio means today in Japanese. I'm probably saying that wrong. Lol. Thanks, guys. So, favorite season?
I'd say my favorite season outside of season 1, which was like the initial World Warrior roster of KI, was probably season 3. I really dug what they did with Idol, and Tusk was a lot of fun too. And I really dug Mira, even though she's like a very difficult to use character. I think they did a lot of really cool stuff, and they were Iron Galaxy was sort of like fitting into those pants like in season 2 and trying to figure things out on the fly. And season 3 was them sort of showing off that, oh, this is what we can actually do. And they started seeing some really cool stuff, including the lighting engine changing around that season. So that was great. I'd say, I completely agree about CVS2. CVS2 was one of the games I played pretty seriously back in the early 2000s, even before Third Strike, which is my favorite fighting game of all time. And CVS2, I would like to think is a game that could potentially come back, because it does seem that Capcom and SNK are pretty buddy with each other again ever since some management has changed over the past year or so.
Nice.
Between these devs. So they seem to be pretty cool with each other on Twitter. And to be honest, they just released a Capcom versus SNK game. It was technically SNK versus Capcom. It was the Neo Geo game, and that took the same sort of agreements to happen to bring back a game like Capcom versus SNK. To me, I feel like it's just an eventuality, more or less than a licensing nightmare like Marvel versus Capcom, where you got to get the eyes and ears of a ton of people to make this shit happen.
Disney, Marvel.
Exactly. So I feel Capcom and SNK is something that can definitely happen. And yeah, I agree. CVS2 is easily one of the best fighting games ever, with some genuinely crazy stuff at a high level. So it's a fun game. Yep.
Good answer. There you go, Hexa.
Yeah. We're trying to pump through. Somnia. Hi, fellas. Hope you're having a great weekend. I'm sure we're all a lot more knowledgeable on Killer Instinct by now since Max is here. I felt like my brain was about to overflow with knowledge after his Final Fantasy VII remake discussion with Easy Allies. if you guys could have one guest character on the new Killer Instinct from any franchise, who would you pick and why?
From any franchise. So this means we're breaching out into the realm of impossibility.
That's right, I guess so.
For sure, that's where it gets fun.
Let's do the one that I would personally want in KI, which is a Bloodborne hunter. Feel like that fits perfectly.
I knew he was going to say
never going to happen. Arguably never going to happen. However, if there's one franchise, if not, maybe not just one character, but a franchise that I think would fit brilliantly with KI, is Darkstalkers. I feel like Darkstalkers characters feel like they're in the same universe. So
yes,
I've always felt
really good one.
And what's funny is that a lot of the devs on Killer Instinct, like I don't know if you guys are super aware of like how character archetypes were, but Shadow Jago is Dimitri. Like his game plan is pretty much Dimitri. What he does Demon Cradle. He does the same fireballs. And there's a good reason behind that. The combat designers of the game were huge Capcom fighting game fans, much less Darkstalkers, competitive Darkstalkers players and competitive Guilty Gear players. So weirdly enough, Killer Instinct from its inception back in the 90s, the 95 version of KI, was just a weird hybrid take on what SNK and Capcom and NetherRealm were doing, Midway was doing at the time with fighting games. They just stuck it into one game and made their own characters.
Yeah.
Killer Instinct, there needs to be like a general understanding that Killer Instinct has always been a parody fighting game. It always has, from the 90s all the way until the 2013 and beyond version. It's always just taken things that other fighting games do and put its own spin on it. It's just trope-ridden fiesta of just things that just exist, and they just have their own crazy spin on it, right? And I think that's like a big thing, like an understanding of what Killer Instinct is, that, like that's the point. You just take the things that are fun about every other fighting game and stick it into one game.
Yeah. Great philosophy. Yeah. Why not?
You know what Max should do?
What?
Max should do, you should do a documentary, Max. Do a documentary on KI. I reckon you should.
Oh, trust me. Others have. And I'm already, if you check out Hold Back to Block.
Yeah, I've seen it.
There's a 2-hour documentary just on Killer Instinct moving from Double Helix to Iron Galaxy with all the MS, Double Helix, and IG devs, including myself. And he's also followed up and had huge interviews and behind the scenes with Mick Gordon around the making of the music for Killer Instinct, and how Mick in season 1 went in the negative. He made no money. He actually
I remember you said that.
Made no money on season 1 because at that time he was essentially like a risk. People didn't know really who Mick was as much at the time. But then the dude would go on to make friggin' like the most iconic fighting game soundtrack of all time, and then he went on to make Doom. So it's like, oh, this is clearly one of the greatest video game composers that has ever existed. You know, so that's like, it's some truly interesting stuff that KI paved the way for. And if you check out Hold Back to Block on YouTube, there's some amazing work that the guy's done on it because he knows the story that KI is super unique.
Yeah, I'll have to watch that. I still want you to do one. Like
okay,
full on in depth,
sure.
like into how it started, and a part of me still wishes that the 360 port came out. I reckon that would have been cool.
It was this little. I mean, that's the thing. It was this little Xbox 360 XBLA game. It was not going to be the initial. What Double Helix got was not an Xbox One launch game at the start. It was just XBLA division is like, hey, we don't have a fighting game. We should do a fighting game. Like that's how it started. Like that was literally it.
Unreal. That's I still wish we got that port. Phalaxis, quick one. Hey gang, who's the best fighter amongst the XboxEra crew, and why is it not Nick? No, it's Nick. P.S. No friends tangent this week, unless no, it's me.
I don't know, man.
Before KI, I was all about Virtua Fighter. All about Virtua Fighter. Like I remember. My brother had this mate who was one of the best Virtua Fighter players in the state, in this state. And he's like, man, you've got to play him. I keep telling him how you play Virtua Fighter so much. And the guy came over, we were playing Virtua Fighter 4 Evo, and I absolutely mopped the floor with him. I was like, I love Virtua Fighter, even to this day.
I don't know. I took this question in a different tangent. I thought it was asking literally Queensberry rules, who would win a fight amongst the XboxEra crew, and I've heard rumor you skip leg day, so we already know your weak point.
I would probably break my wrists if I punch someone. Like my wrists would probably just break. Like I'm not strong. I'm not a no. I'm not a fighter. These hands.
There's clearly a winner on both ends. Everybody's a winner here.
Yeah,
that's right.
Physical or digital.
Yeah. No. I'm of the digital variety, definitely. Not a real one. No way.
If I was to put money on an XboxEra crew member, though, it would be Blast the Bass. Like he's got. I've seen him playing. He does a lot of music, live music. He's carrying loads of gear all the time. He's probably got some heft to him. Probably. He's one to watch. But yeah, fun question.
Okay. Frank Ortiz, I think. Well, with the Japanese fighting game expert on, of course, I need to ask Max this: do you think a big publisher or first party will ever take a risk with indie fighting game developers? Ones who come to mind are Arika Studios, who is run by Akira Nishitani and Akira Yasuda. I hope I'm not butchering these names.
No, you're saying it right. Akira Nishitani was the guy that pretty much made Street Fighter 2.
Yes, and that's what he says here, who made Street Fighter 2 and Street Fighter EX for Capcom. I actually liked EX. That was good.
Yeah.
Or Lightweight, who made Bushido Blade for Square Enix. Both companies, unfortunately, have been reduced to support studios who will pick up any work to survive. With Phil scrounging around the world looking for talent, perhaps this is the time. Thank you, gentlemen. Max, may you forever be showered with... I don't want to say that.
What the hell does that say for you?
It can't be good.
You got to say it now. Come on.
The build-up was there, and I don't know if I want another payout.
May you forever be showered with big titty anime women for all eternity. Godspeed.
Dope,
bro. That's why I said I didn't want to read that out.
I don't know what streams of mine he's watched, but okay.
Oh my god! Wow.
I definitely see where he's coming from. Where it's like if they go to
studio.
Yeah, where if they go to Arika, if they go to well, you gotta think like Dimps and Aiding are that now. Like they were premier fighting game developers 10 years ago, dude. Like that was the thing about those two devs, is that I don't think they've really made any other fighting games in a long time. Aiding has another project working on right now that is a dungeon fighter duel game that we've seen very little on. It's not out yet, and they're working on it with Arc System Works.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it really depends, like, because you're not going to want to go to Arika or potentially any of these other meager, practically like AA studios now.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to turn, it depends on what scope Microsoft wants for KI. Like, do they want to take this to big giant fighting game devs, a la like Capcom or Bandai Namco, or right? It depends on who they have relationships with already. It really depends on like, who have they been talking to that would want to take on this project? Because I would like to think that they don't want to change the identity of Killer Instinct and turn it into like a 3D brawler. You know, that they would actually keep it like a 2.5D fighting game that people knew and loved and grew to like over the past 7-8 years. So there's very few options at that point. It's like you got to start considering who could be in that list of like how much money do they want to spend on this stuff. Do they want to go like super high end and approach the bigger devs like the two I just mentioned? Do they want to potentially go to SNK? Do they want to like there's a few options in there. Do they want to potentially reach out to CyberConnect too? Like there's quite a few devs that are really good at combat, and it depends on the biggest challenge here is the language barrier. The biggest challenge of a lot of Killer Instinct has a lot of crazy systems and subsystems, and it's just finding a developer that would be willing to easily communicate with Microsoft, especially if it's overseas.
Yeah, it is. It's actually quite a big deal. Okay, Anorexic. Hello, prestigious gentlemen and prestigious guest Maximilian. I've been out of the loop of the fighting game scene over the last decade and have no idea if an arcade presence is as important as it was in the late 90s or 2000s, specifically in regards to fighting games and their popularity. Did Killer Instinct 2013 even have a presence? I don't think it did. And if not, do you think this hurt the game's popularity? Do not discount the fact that being a launch title on a console with a freshly damaged reputation was a massive hurdle to the game's popularity. Finally, if there is to be a KI sequel, should an arcade version be considered? Thanks so much.
It's a good question. And I think for someone that held on to the value of the arcade scene for fighting games for as long as I did, it's worth knowing that the answer is no. The answer is that there is no direct scene that is big enough to sustain what they would need for it to cost to make, right? Even in Japan, the bigger thing is, I'm talking actually pre-pandemic. In a post-pandemic situation, it's significantly harder, where any place that might have had like a growing arcade scene in 2019 is practically non-existent, and you're pretty much limited to very small locations of people that are just hardcore from like 20 years ago. It's difficult now, and even to the point where one of the biggest arcade developers there is, which was Raw Thrills, had to port one of their games to recent hardware, when before in the past they said they would never do that. They said that our games are arcade games. That's the way they are, because they make a ton of arcade games. But push comes to shove, well, we can't be doing nothing. And they made a Switch port of Cruisin' USA, and it was great, or Cruisin' Blast. It was great. So I think the chance of that being a thing is extremely low, much less being considered for the future is also extremely low, because the unfortunate situation is that the future is online.
Did Street Fighter V get an arcade version? It didn't, did it? Oh, it did. 4
years into its already existing development.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
It was very weird.
Why?
So hold on, 4 years.
It never came out anywhere outside of Japan.
I was about to say it wouldn't.
It's called Street Fighter V Type Arcade.
Wow.
How strange.
That is. Yeah, why would that happen 4 years later?
Capcom works in mysterious ways. Capcom and their fighting game division over the past 8 years, since like Street Fighter Cross Tekken, has worked in strange and mysterious ways.
4 years. That's so weird.
It's very weird.
What a strange choice.
Man. Yeah, tell me about it.
Capcom.
Okay. Next one. We're doing okay, I think. Vinny 13. Evening all. I've been really interested by all the KI chat in recent weeks. I only have any real experience with 3D fighters, Tekken specifically. How accessible do you think KI is to pick up in 2021-22 as preparation for whenever we get a new version? P.S. Thank you for the Omega Rally Championship code. The driving model in that game is indeed excellent. They should totally reboot Micro Machines with this control scheme. That's right, Vinny. That is what I was saying. Anorexic made a great little game in Omega Rally Championship. It's just the creator's collection game, but the driving model he has for a rally game in it is great, and it could easily work for a new Rock and Roll Racing, Micro Machines. Take your pick. Max would be aware of all these games because Max is probably a very similar age to me, and we would have grown up on the same games. Did you like Rock and Roll Racing?
I have no idea what it is. I'm sorry.
Nick is betrayed live.
I'm sorry. Direct betrayal.
Glorious.
Rock and Roll. It's by Blizzard owns it.
Oh, is it that one? Okay, they made it. Didn't they just make?
They re-released it. Yeah.
Yes.
I think it was Digital Eclipse. Just made a port of it.
Yes. Rock and Roll Racing, and that was that isometric view.
Yeah.
I guess Mario Kart before Mario Kart almost.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about now.
Yes, and the driving model that Anorexic has in Omega Rally Championship would work brilliantly on a modern day Rock and Roll Racing Micro
Those
Machines
are those kind of games that feel like there should be Rock and Roll Racing 99 or something like that. Or like that isometric perspective like racing game would be brilliant if you had like a ton of people on the track at the same time and you were just grinding it out to get like those games like which are a bit more simple and focused in design feel like they would fit like giant multiplayer schemes really well.
Just a giant battle royale. Like if you're last, you're knocked out, and the laps keep going.
Well, it is.
There's like a barrier that closes in and knocks people out. Yeah. That dude, what you're explaining is what my idea has been for F-Zero for the past like 5 years, where it's just like F-Zero should have 99 players, and it just slowly zooms in and kills people on the back end until there's one person left.
Someone needs to make it. The money is waiting on the table.
Omega Rally Championship is a game that you get if you sub to our Patreon. It's not something we advertise. It's just something that we do for our patrons. We give them a free copy.
Thanks to
but how accessible? Now back to the question: how accessible do you think KI is in 2021, 2022?
So
I think it's still fairly okay.
It's pretty good. Like the nice thing is that Killer Instinct always has a pretty good populace of people playing. If you're going to go online at like 3 o'clock in the morning, it's going to be a little difficult. You're only going to find the hardcore dudes. But yeah, being a game that is cross-play between Windows and Xbox and even in some fashion Steam, yes, yeah, there is a pretty good amount of people that'll be complete noobs and you can jump in and play. Vinny was mentioning Tekken and was sort of comparing it to Tekken in many ways. And funny enough, if the impression is that would your very limited experience stand any chance against like skilled players in KI, then it's about identical to Tekken, where Tekken's barrier of skill gap, like how much it takes to become really good at Tekken, is about arguably as much as Killer Instinct. Killer Instinct, to be really good at it, will take you years. There is so much stuff to remember when you're not playing it at a casual level. It is a very difficult game to be really good at. And that's because the roster eventually got big, and Tekken's a game also that is a legacy game with a ton of moves, and people just had to play this stuff for years to know how to block everything and what it looks like. Luckily enough, KI is insanely accessible at a low level. It's arguably one of the most fun fighting games if you're just hitting buttons. You just see stuff happen, and it feels great. But the best part is that unless you start having an understanding of the game and you get an understanding of what's happening, it's not difficult to be in somebody else's head and directly take advantage of that. Like it puts the mind games at an absolute surface level in the same way that with Tekken at a very early level, you're trying to like block everything until it takes you a while where it's like, well, you know, you're not going to be able to block everything, man. Like that's kind of the way these games work. It's not going to be designed for you to be able to block everything. That's the point. So that's an important thing to understand in terms of accessibility. KI is definitely a game where you'll have fun at a low level. But if you want to approach it and take it seriously, there's plenty of people that still play, and they are super good.
They're sweaty as.
Yeah, you are not gonna. You are. If the question is like, then that sucks. Fighting games shouldn't be that way. No. There should. Fighting games should have a skill gap. Like that's what makes them special. There should be. You watch somebody really good at the game should look very different from people that are at the mid to lower level. It should look like a completely different game so that you have something aspired to build up towards.
Yeah. Yes. Otherwise, what's the point in?
Otherwise, what's the point?
Season.
Exactly. Yeah. Even that's wonderful to hear you say that, because I know you're not big into fighting games, right?
It's true.
But to have people understand that, like, you have to understand, you can't be amazing at something if you just picked it up and expect to beat the best people, right? Yeah. Like that's a general understanding that I think people have, but for some reason, developers still are trying to do that. It's like, can we just make the game fun?
Well, I think there's a huge argument, and my biggest point of reference for that is Halo. The backdrop gives it away. I'm a big Halo fan. When I played Halo CE, I was the best. I was the best among my small group of friends. It wasn't online, so I didn't have anyone to really go up against. And then Halo 2 came out, and I realized I was terrible, because suddenly there was this echelon of players. I was like, oh my God, I am getting wiped out. What? I thought I was the best. And it pushes and drives you to get better and better.
In fighting games, we call that basement warriors, where essentially you're the best out of a group of friends, and you think you're super good at the game. And then you either go to an arcade, or in this situation, you jump online in higher ranks, and you just realize that,
I've got to scratch
I'm not that good, actually. Like there's all this stuff that I'm missing, That's an important part.
Yeah, and that's what led me to love Halo even more and play more. And I don't play so much, but I can still hold my own because I've got a lot of muscle memory there. That, I might not be as quick reaction-wise as the young whippersnappers nowadays, but I'm more seasoned. That's how I'm viewing it.
You'd be shocked how all this stuff is the exact same thing in fighting games, where re-tapping into that muscle memory is exactly what it is. You just need to be familiar with these situations, be around them enough where they become normal situations, and suddenly they're not scary and you know what to do.
Yep, absolutely.
Something Max said just reminded me of my favorite story about Marvel vs. Capcom 2. I went to an arcade once. For the Australians watching, I went to the Crown Casino in Melbourne, where they used to have a basement arcade. Started playing Marvel vs. Capcom 2 on a dual-sided cabinet.
Yeah.
Halfway through playing, realized back was broken, so I couldn't block.
Wow.
In Marvel vs. Capcom 2, which you really need to do in Marvel vs. Capcom. Unless you're a gun attacker, you got to be able to block. And then halfway through, I hear bing, bing, bing on the other side. You've got a new challenger. I'm like, no, I can't block. I reckon I went through 5 guys before they finally took me down in Marvel vs. Capcom 2 without being able to block. I was wrapped. I was so proud of myself.
Proudest moment. Proud. Put it on your CV.
Yep. As far as fighting games go, I was so proud of myself that it took 5 of them before I finally went down. It was great. Okay. Where's the next KI one? Okay. Morphenthus has given us 2 questions and he said pick one or the other. One talks about KI. What new or improved features do we want to see in a new Killer Instinct? Max would definitely the best.
That's a loaded question.
So luckily KI already, I mean, in its current iteration is a pretty feature-rich game. There's a ton of single-player stuff. Like if I can just briefly mention what single-player is, there's an arcade mode with simple endings, right? The usual in Season 1. In Season 2, I put together the story mode with Double Helix. I'm sorry, with Iron Galaxy, where I was the cinematics director and there was a story guy. And I had very little influence on the story outside of a couple of beats, but we had multiple cutscenes that played out machinima style throughout the game because we had very little budget to actually add a story mode. So there was like, there's an intro, there was a middle sequence, there was an end, and you had to play through all these fights that were story sequence for every new character in the game. Season 3, they don't have a story mode like that one, but they have a giant Shadow Lords mode, which is like a world tour mode where you level up your character and get items and abilities, all to take down the super big bad guy, the Shadow Lord bad dude Gargos in the end. That is a crazy hyper buffed out version of Gargos, right? So that was like all done already, but that's not it. Like those 3 seasons of single player content, and then they added a Shadow mode, which is an AI building CPU mode where you can essentially build an AI to fight other people's AIs and it levels up. And the AI would eventually learn how you play and make a simulation of what you do. So people could, without feeling bad, play some of the best players at KI, but just fight their AI if they wanted to. All this stuff was in Killer Instinct, right? So this is all just single player, not to mention the online features, like everything that it had. The fact that like its approachability was the way it is, I think, honestly, like one of the best things that KI can do instead of taking the existing elements that are or already people love this stuff. This is why KI is such a hard act to follow because it already had all this shit. Is to make the game truly free to play. I think if we're going to talk about something that should be improved in KI going forward and where fighting games should go, they should make like the core game should be free. Like. And the game is hyper focused on cosmetics, and you can pay to change Jago's fireball to blue. You can do these things and unlock packs and stuff like that. That'll give you new secret colors, and you can go fight boss fights potentially online. That'll give you. There needs to be stuff like that. There needs to be a consideration for people that fighting games aren't just a tool to beat somebody else's ass. They need to be accepted that they are video games, right? They are things that people just want to jump in and play. And luckily old KI had a lot of that, but I think there is room to expand, especially considering how, the way fighting games are currently. So if we're talking about systems, like I want to see supers, like if we're talking about things that can be improved in Killer Instinct, I would love to see you be able to drop a couple of meters into a big cinematic super in some way.
So above what we have with the shadow ones?
No, so those are like EX moves, right? For the most part, like in Street Fighter, when you use like you use a bar on a regular special move, it turns into an EX move. That's what KI has. Shadow moves are essentially EXs. I'm talking like doing some big cinematic Marvel 3 Street Fighter 5 kind of thing, right? In integrating, more things that you can do with the flashy stuff. To be honest, like Killer Instinct didn't have a huge budget to put into the little fluffy flashy stuff. Not every character had a fatality. Not every character had like the best ultras and stuff like that. Some stuff did have to come online a lot earlier than they wanted to. Ultras. I think like all the fluffy stuff that you see in a game like Mortal Kombat with like brutalities and fatalities and stage finishers, I feel like all that kind of stuff could be definitely considered. The stuff that makes good trailer bait, Killer Instinct barely had any of that, and it took many years for all that stuff to eventually come online.
Good answer. I think there's probably a lot there. The cosmetic stuff in particular, considering how I don't say niche in a disparaging way about the fighting community, but because of how niche it is, you get a lot of people that really love their fighting games that, yeah, I want to go all out and I want to really customize my character and, you know, do X, Y, and Z with fireballs and things like that. I think it would be a great way to start, but I think we're a little ways out from ever seeing what KI2 would be.
Sure.
We'll see.
Okay, so this is, I think, the last of the direct Max/KI comments/questions. So we'll get through it now in case Max needs to go because we're really hitting his limit.
Yeah.
Running right. No question, just a couple of quick comments. Max, your videos on Killer Instinct are outstanding and helped my KI game improve tremendously. When my wife and I first started talking, she would call me and hear an obnoxious amount of clicking in the background. It took her 3 phone calls to finally ask what on earth I was doing. Also, a counter breaker is one of the all-time most satisfying things in video games. It really is. And shadow counters are like, if you pull one of those off, it's so good. Congratulations to the whole Era crew on hitting 10K. Hopefully it hits by the time you read this. Yes, we did. Well deserved. You all do a great job and have worked very hard to create this wonderful community. Lastly, I think it's only fair that since John sat through a KI Field podcast, Nick should have to sit through a Sea of Thieves podcast. Yeah, I was trying to get Freddie Prinze Jr. on. We're still
tried
trying.
and failed.
Yes, and I reached out to him on Twitter the other day and said, dude, get on the podcast and we can talk about Sea of Thieves. I don't like Sea of Thieves, but I'm willing to sit through it, and that's fine. That is okay.
A lot of people think I don't like Sea of Thieves anymore because I didn't like the last expansion. But I did a guest on XEP, Xbox Expansion Pass. If you haven't heard it, it talks a little bit more about what XboxEra is and, you know, what we're doing, why we're doing it, how we juggle the being a publication versus content creation. It's a tricky line to walk. But through that, I ended up speaking to one of the guys that does a rather large Sea of Thieves podcast. So I might end up on that. So maybe you can dodge this bullet and I'll go talk about pirates.
That's okay. I'm still going to try and get Freddie Prinze Jr. on. I'm going to get him on. Okay. I will do it eventually.
Well, I could tie this all together because one of the dudes that is the lead music guys on Sea of Thieves is Robin Beanland.
Yep.
And he made the original Killer Instinct soundtrack.
He did.
Oh,
in 1995. And funny, he's the one back when KI was being resurrected back in like 2013. I went to E3 and had dinner with him, and we got to share a whole bunch of stuff of what happened between Microsoft and Rare around the early 2000s and stuff that I could never talk about, but had a great like candid conversation about like everything. He gave me his Killer Instinct leather jacket that's worth literally thousands of dollars.
Wow.
He's like, I want to pass it on to somebody that like loves this stuff as much as we had. It's having as much fun with this as much as we had making it, because these dudes were like in their teens and 20s, early 20s when they put together KI. So genuinely great dude, and he's still at Rare and he's still pumping out incredible music and everything.
Yep. Yeah, Sea of Thieves, the soundtrack is, I still love it. Like I'm not going to go on a Sea of Thieves tangent, I promise.
Don't. It all comes together.
It all comes together. It's full circle. But yeah.
Well, that's it. Because I know, Max, you said that you had a bit of a limit, so that's why we tried to get through the KI questions and the direct questions to you first. Sure. So I don't know if you need to go, that's fine.
I only have a couple more minutes until I do have to go. So if we have anything else to wrap up or any final concerns or anything about that,
that's a good shout. I have one final question for you that I can throw at you and tell me what you think. In this scary world where an unknown developer is possibly developing a new entry into what is arguably one of your most favorite fighting franchises of all time, do you think that there's a world where they could pick up all the engine, all the artwork, all the asset work that exists already and then completely use that as the foundation and then rebuild and then go from there, rather than, new dev takes it on, I'm going to go and use Unreal Engine 5 and I'm going to build this all the systems from scratch? If that was possible, and do you think it is, would that be your preferred route, to take KI 2013 as the foundation and then have this developer really look at it from scratch, redo all the textures, and then start playing around with the systems?
Yeah, that's a great question, because I have thought of it a lot, where a reuse of assets in fighting games is like a tale as old as time kind of thing, where it's been happening for years. Like Tekken 7 still uses assets from Tekken 5, right? And Smash Brothers Ultimate was just a reusal of assets from the previous Smash Brothers for Wii U, just changed and modified, right? I don't think it's a bad thing to reuse assets. I think it's obvious to touch things up where there might have been limitations, if not budget constraints before, and make things look better, work better, be more fun to play, change the way characters play, right? But you can still use them as a base. So to answer your question, yeah, I think they should absolutely keep things in hand from Killer Instinct 2013 to 2017. I think though that game's set up for too much good shit to just completely get rid of. Absolutely. I think a complete new take on KI would be really interesting, but I would be substantially more worried.
Yeah,
if they just decided to start over, because they could make the existing assets that KI had look a lot better and redesign the characters and put them into a new game, and it would look damn good. It would still be a very good looking game. Well, Killer Instinct in most fashions animates very well, and there's some really great looking characters like Saberwolf and stuff like that, and Glacius that still stand like, if you. I would argue, if you haven't done it yet, just go download KI Definitive Edition. If you have an OLED, and if you've never seen what Killer Instinct looks like on an OLED, oh my God, dude, see what KI looks like on a 4K OLED, and it will challenge anything modern on the Xbox platform, much less the PlayStation platform. It is ridiculous looking.
It is. It looks nice.
A lot of stuff really holds up, and I think it can be improved upon. Here's the problem. Killer Instinct's made on something called the Hex engine. This is this ancient piece of software. Double Helix's own proprietary engine that they had, that was built into the contracts with Microsoft, that if the project moved forward, they would also pass on the engine usage.
Dope.
And luckily, like, this is the miracle that is Killer Instinct. The game moved to Iron Galaxy, a company that has been doing nothing but like making ports for years, like half a decade. They've been doing ports and working in other people's engines, and they had the engineering marvel to take the Hex engine and literally figure it out in like record time. So just to give some perspective, TJ Combo was the first prototype character that Iron Galaxy had with Double Helix's engine. They had 2 months. In 2 months, TJ Combo was fully functional online and had his own Ultra. And the lighting was still weird with him, because he was like a darker skinned character, obviously. So they were still figuring stuff out, because it's like, so how do we light the character? How do we do this stuff? They chose a pretty challenging dude, because TJ was like a man, right? All of his musculature was showing, like all this stuff. So they had a lot of like challenges to sort of approach here, and they made him look amazing. I won't lie, I was definitely worried. Like when I saw some of the stuff that was online, and it was hard for me to put things into perspective, because Double Helix was doing a great job, but they really killed it. And they had the talent, like the engineering talent, to kill it. It's going to be hard to ask for that all over again.
Yeah,
it's going to be hard to just drop. Can you expect?
Does lightning strike twice in the same spot?
So Microsoft still technically.
It's the third time technically.
Yeah.
So Microsoft still technically owns the engine, yes?
I believe so. I believe, like, if the franchise moved forward, that they have like a technically like licensing usage for it, because obviously Double Helix was not using it anymore, and it was moved directly to IG, because that was their primary engine. They never switched engines. It was always on the Hex engine. And I can't even tell you, in the same way that we talked about, like the Quake engine has been modified and brutalized over these years to do all this crazy stuff for like Call of Duty and things like that. That's what Iron Galaxy did for the Hex engine. Like they couldn't even change fireballs in the Hex engine at first. They had to get engineers to figure out how to change the complete way it works, to actually get a fireball to have a different trajectory than forward. Like, wow. It was daunting. The camera could not be changed. Like, you could not do cinematic camera stuff at all. They had to rework the entire camera system. They had to rework the lighting. Like, Iron Galaxy had the people to figure this stuff out. That's where they spent a lot of their budget. So, and what's not cheap, man. Like they practically remade the game using the existing engine just to allow them to do more. But here's the crazy part. They couldn't do the thing that they needed to do the most, which was costumes. They wanted to make more costumes. They wanted to make more accessories. And they literally, it was a direct engine limitation. They couldn't do it. They had no way of changing that. So unless they switched to another engine, they could not make more costumes and accessories. and that was where they were making a lot of their money.
Oh, you're saying more? Because I was about to say they did have some costumes.
They had some. There was some. There was like 3 sets of unique costumes for the head, the body, like the knees per character, and there was an alternate set as well that you could change, but they couldn't go beyond that. They were specifically limited on what they could do. Wow. So, in the way that they could have made a ton of more money, right, and actually given people what they wanted, which was more customization. Like everyone loved it. It was like, dang, how about we get more stuff? Engine limitation. This thing was made for like Xbox, the beginning of the Xbox 360 era, and it was crazy. Like 7 years later still being utilized.
It's I mean, hey, all I've heard just then is basically there's the pitch for the Killer Instinct documentary that Nick's looking for from Maximillian, dude. I think that's what I've just heard. Like there's just little nuggets there, and this kind.
That's what I mean, because he knows so much awesome effing stuff. Like,
to be frank, a lot of that is
you don't understand.
A lot of that comes.
Talk about it all day.
A lot of that does come directly from the Microsoft guys, and they have talked about it. Wow. So all the people that were like the direct big producers. The funny thing is that I over the years that I've talked to them and I know them, they all talk about KI as being this like golden moment of their careers and stuff like that. Where it's just like, God, you remember Killer Instinct? How crazy that was, and that was honestly one of the things that got me to start #BringBackKI was the fact that so many of these dudes that were at one point top of like the XBLA crew to make decisions and do all this stuff, and suddenly what happens like a few years later? XBLA division's gone. Like completely split up and managed amongst all of Microsoft Studios now, where it's like, well, it's hard to think if KI actually has like a really big champion, you know, if they have somebody that will make these decisions to take it forward, because they did before. It was in the XBLA crew.
Yeah, didn't Adam Eisgreen work on KI?
Yeah.
Yeah, so we've had Adam on a couple of times, and we do need to get him back on again. Now he's launched Age 4, and
he said he'd probably come back on after Age 4.
And obviously Ken Lobb as well. Like Ken and Adam were like the two big. They talk about this a lot in the Hold Back to Block KI documentary. I highly recommend you guys check it out. Like, please go check it out. It's super fascinating. Just to show how much of this industry revolves around people wanting to work with other people. And that's what it takes. It isn't a committee that does stuff. It involves champions. It involves people that want to take a risk, and it involves like a lot of stuff needs to line up perfectly. Like the stars need to align, and it literally happened for KI.
That's amazing.
Just one last quick one before you go. I just remembered now. KI World Cup, isn't it supposed to be coming back again soon?
Yes, it is essentially fan run by the same folks that have done. I think it's the Ultra Arcade guys that have that did it before, and they ran KI World Cup for several years. Yes. So I think he's trying to bring it back and do something very similar, where there's like qualifying points and things like that. That sort of build up. So yeah, I'll definitely be supporting that. I'll be like retweeting that stuff.
Oh, good.
And rehosting
it. And we'll do the same.
I get so into KI World Cup. I watch that like I watch any other sport. Like I have it on all day in the background that I'm watching, and it's
the documentary covers a lot of the community World Cup aspect of it as well, and how Microsoft sort of supported it. This was like even before giant Capcom Cup stuff. So once again, that's another thing that was super influential, was community engagement that Microsoft sort of started, that Eisgreen and a lot of the XBLA crew allowed to happen. And even to the point where fans budgeted a character to be made. Like, I'm not even kidding. Shadow Jago was just a skin at one point, and then Microsoft was like, hey, you know what? We want to support our World Cup and this fan thing. All the money that goes into you buying this character, essentially pre-ordering this character, goes into the tournament scene, goes into pot bonuses, and goes into paying to make this stuff happen. And they had a budget of like $100,000. And
they smashed it.
It hit it in 8 minutes.
They smashed it.
They sold enough of the character in like 8 minutes, and they're like, okay, so we can't talk about this publicly because they'll think we're lying.
I basically paid 80 Australian dollars for Shago because he came with the 12 months of Xbox Live Gold. Yeah. I was already 3 years ahead on Gold. I just wanted Shadow Jago, so I paid $80 and I got him. I love it. I love it so much.
Well, look, Max, appreciate, we're right on the cusp of you having to go. So wanted to take this opportunity to really thank you for
much,
jumping
man.
on.
No, thank you guys. I'm looking forward to whatever happens in the future. If you get any more people to talk about KI, if there is a future for KI, I truly hope all this stuff does end up actually rounding the bend. Because as much as Nick knows it's true, you hear about these things that seem super cool, and sometimes they just don't happen. It's like they were happening, man. Like, I swear, like it was definitely there. And I hope KI is not a situation like that. I hope that Microsoft hasn't forgotten about it. The biggest hope now is who's going to do it and who is going to take up that mantle, because that is a big mantle.
Yeah, it's a challenge. But fingers crossed. But as always, if you're watching and for some bizarre reason you've heard of us but not heard of Max or his content, go check out his YouTube channel and his Twitter. They're running across the screen, and his Twitch. He's on there regularly.
Yes,
and absolute big thank you for jumping on, Max. We really appreciate it. For those still watching, we are going to jump into some more community questions in a bit. We'll just let Max slide out, and we'll carry on.
Goodbye, guys. Thanks for having me. Have a good one.
Thank you very much.
Right. Thanks heaps.
And
we just keep going.
I love StreamYard for this.
It's good, isn't it? We just keep going.
What a wonderful guest to have on, Max.
I was trying so hard to get him on because I could hear him talk about KI all day.
The passion is
hear him talk about it all day.
The passion is obvious, right? And
yes,
he speaks about it with such knowledge, such passion, such love for the series. It's hard not to find it a little bit infectious. So big thank you to Max for jumping on. It was really, really cool.
Yep.
So I feel a little bit. Yeah, we'll continue on. I feel a little bit weird today because I feel a little bit out of sorts because I haven't got any of these buttons to press. So I just wanted to take a moment. We do have Jesse Don Cabeza, who's hiding in the background, who's actually producing. So if you want to know why all the banners are running and doing all of this stuff, he's there pressing the buttons so that none of us have to. Creaky legs. I want to see that. I want to see that in GIF form at some point on Twitter in the next couple of hours.
I need to. I just saw Asa from Game On Daily. I just saw Asa in the chat. I need to ask Asa how he customizes StreamYard as much as he has.
Yes.
I want to learn how to do it.
Brains,
so I wouldn't mind sticking with StreamYard going forward because of this kind of flexibility. When we have these guests that are on strict time, they just appear for a little bit and then they go. Don't do that. Emil with a super chat.
Wait, there's
hello.
One before
as we all see. Actually, you can show the super chats. There you go. How cool is that? Microsoft is finally spending a lot of money on publishing deals. Would you like to see a new first-party IP from Rebellion?
Do you know what? Their games, they're usually co-op focused. They're interesting, but they're also a bit one note sometimes. Maybe that's a team with a really big budget that could do something above and beyond what they have been doing. But to my knowledge, Zombie Army in particular, which I played a bit of Sniper Elite, but Zombie Army, it's quite good fun if you're into that kind of thing. It's a bit mindless, but it's good fun. Hey, I wouldn't say never to something like that. So yeah, maybe, but it's certainly nothing we've heard about, right?
Nope. Not with Rebellion. Rebellion.
Just a little further up, I presume you might have seen it by now. Acute Perspective. Respect due, everyone. Happy Halloween.
Happy Halloween. Yes, it is Halloween here.
Yeah. Now, do you know what's really cool? Is in 21 minutes, I'm going to time travel live on air. Because now,
at 2 a.m. you go back to 1 a.m.
Yeah, I'm in the future right now, technically. 1:39 a.m. here, and in 21 minutes it'll be 1 a.m. again. So it's an extra hour in bed. Not bad.
I do love that Max left, and all of a sudden the view account went. It
didn't go by a lot though. It didn't go by a lot, but he was great to have on. So really appreciate it.
He was very good.
Anyway, community questions.
We keep going with community questions. All right, all the way back to the very first one. Big Glow 25. Hey guys, I was wondering, would Microsoft, Xbox do a State of Play Nintendo Direct equivalent when they have more games to announce outside of E3 TGA, since I feel that would increase their presence in more territories and show their commitment to gaming? We've covered this a lot, haven't we? And they've kind of started to do it.
Yeah.
And obviously they had Inside Xbox, which kind of just slowly went away without officially announcing everything. It was just sort of like Old Yeller, just taken out the back
and shot.
Yeah, Old Yeller. I think, again, it's one of those things like, waiting should be like the key phrase for Microsoft. Everything is waiting. You got to wait. I feel like once they have, we probably sound like broken records, but I feel like once they have that cadence that they want, where they're pumping out those games. I mean, we've always said clearly the goal for Game Pass was 1 tentpole per quarter. We were saying it long before they said it themselves.
Yep.
Because it makes sense. That's why they do $1 for 3 months. So they get you with $1 for 3 months, and then they're hoping that in 3 months' time, the next big game comes out. So you think, I'll just stay subscribed. And then 3 months later, another big game comes along. I'll just stay subscribed. That's their goal. That's what they're trying to get you to do. Once they have that cadence going, which I still think will probably most likely be 2023, judging by the first half of 2022, it'll probably be 2023.
Yep.
Then I think, yes, they will go like Nintendo and just start dropping stuff. Maybe they bring back Inside Xbox. I don't know. But I think they will start to have more in-between shows rather than just, E3, Gamescom, Game Awards, that's it.
And to add to that, one thing I would say when we talk about increasing their presence in communities other than the US and the UK, I've seen recently on Twitter, there's a lot of new Xbox employees starting up. Xbox Poland is a thing. Xbox Sweden is a thing, and they're tweeting in their native language for their community, etc., etc. That's great to see because it's been far too long that hasn't been a thing, and you've had to just rely on this very American approach. And I sense Microsoft's a big ship, right? These directions and these directives roll out. They take a little while to land and start going in that direction. But did you know Xbox Poland followed us back, which was quite nice.
Oh, really?
Xbox UK, where you at, my bros? Come on, I'm here. But yeah, it's nice. It's nice to see that, and I think you'll see more of that as the year carries on.
Okay. Dio game.
Dio game.
Did you hear anything? Wow, did that just edit in front of my eyes?
Yeah.
I feel like Dio Game's question literally edited in front of my eyes. Did you hear anything more on Millie A's reported third-party exclusive Xbox game and whether it is perhaps Matter or Splinter Cell? Also, do you think MS should be pricks and fight fire with money hats, or is this a short-sighted means of filling gaps until first-party fires on all cylinders? Okay, interesting. Millie's thing. I wish it did edit before my eyes. DI Game said it just edited. Okay, I didn't think it was my imagination. That Millie thing, I wish I hadn't tweeted what I tweeted because people took that as me teasing that I know something. I don't know anything about Millie's game. When I saw Millie's tweet, I sent it to 2 or 3 of my sources. Do you know what this is? Do you know what this is? Do you know what this is? None of them know, but they all have suspicions. That's why I talked about Splinter Cell, because one of them said, maybe it's Splinter Cell. Like that
sure would be nice.
I mean, surely it's no secret that Ubisoft clearly aren't interested in giving us Splinter Cell. Like they keep teasing Splinter Cell, and they put Sam Fisher in everything except his own game. So maybe Splinter Cell, to me, the only thing about Millie's tweet that throws me is that it's worded like it's a money hat. And Splinter Cell wouldn't be a money hat. Splinter Cell would be like Bayonetta 2 and 3, where Microsoft are paying for it to exist. rather than a situation where it's Ubisoft's making it, Microsoft's come along and money had in it. I don't think that would be the case with Splinter Cell. I'd say that Microsoft would talk to Ubisoft and say, hey, everyone wants Splinter Cell back. We know you're a little bit scared of bringing it back because you can't really turn it into an Assassin's Creed Splinter Cell. How about we pay for most of it? And it's a traditional single-player, stealth-based Splinter Cell, Xbox only.
Yeah,
and PC.
I could see that world happening.
Put it on your launcher, put it on Steam, put it on our launcher, put it everywhere, console, cloud, the whole lot. We'll pay for most of it. Not a problem. And we'll take care of the marketing budget. To me, that's how Splinter Cell would work. And that's why I'm not sure if Millie's thing is Splinter Cell, because her thing reads like a money hat, which Splinter Cell wouldn't be. I did hear another crazy theory from one of my other sources, but I'm not going to say it because I already know where it's going to end up on Reddit, and I already know how my words are going to be twisted.
I think I can tell exactly what that is. Like, I know.
I'm not even going to mention the other game that I got told it could be because God only knows. But yeah, I don't know. I hope it's Splinter Cell. I really do. I hope it's Splinter Cell because that would be amazing. Next question. Where are we going? We're going to a non-Max question. I mean, Beast Mode Beast Mode 10 says congratulations on hitting 10K. PS writing in advance because you were only 20 short at the time of writing. So yeah. This is one we could have asked from Dirty Flint because it was a quick one, but I don't know. Hey guys, lots of long questions here, so here's a short one. What's your favorite color? Purple.
Green.
Purple.
I'm on brand, people. I'm on brand. But no, it's green.
Purple is the best color.
It's a good color.
Purple.
Harmonica would agree.
Is sexy red. Purple, or horny red. Purple is horny red.
There you go.
That is purple.
You heard it here first.
Okay. Good old Collingwood. I like that we could just keep going even after our guest.
It feels good,
left.
doesn't it? It feels good.
I love that.
It doesn't break the flow.
Yeah.
We just get to hang out with all our community. It's nice. I really love it. I'll tell you what I miss. I miss the animations, the control over the music and the high quality that I can stream out.
And
I miss that.
This is the thing. This is why it's like this balancing act. That's why I want to talk to Asa and ask Asa how he customized StreamYard as much as he has.
Yeah.
And to see if I can achieve something similar. Okay. Good old Collingwood. Hello, John, Nick, and Monsieur Dude, who has obviously now left us. Tonight is Halloween, but for Australians, there is an extra reason to be scared. It's tax time. Following up from last week, John, it's good to find out your missing cat is safe, well, and now an indoor cat for life. Okay.
No.
My questions lately have been all related to the 20th anniversary, and today's no exception. Now, what's he got here? Okay. Now, you wake up shocked and sweating. Surely you were having a nightmare. No, it really happened. The launch of the Xbox One last night really was a horrible failure. You look in the mirror, you are Don Matrick. You get up feeling depressed and disappointed. How could this go so wrong? You walk over to the hotel door where the morning newspaper has been slipped underneath. You open it up to check the headlines, and then you gasp as you see the date. 2012. It's not E3 2013. It was a dream, a portentous premonition. You think to yourself, I can fix this. I have a year to repair everything. What didn't people like? And you review the dream you had to find out what was unpopular. To your dismay, you find out that the four problems, you can only fix 3 of them. Now, you must decide which 3 of the 4 problems do you fix in the 12 months leading up to E3 2013, saving the console, saving the brand name, and possibly saving your job. The Xbox One being online all the time and with DRM issues, the Xbox One being bundled with Kinect, the Xbox One being less powerful than the PS4, the Xbox One being $100 more than the PS4. You are Don Matrick. What do you do? That's actually a really cool question.
It's a great question, but it's a really easy answer. It's a really easy answer.
The online all the time DRM.
You can fix 3 of these issues, but you can't fix 1. So I would fix being online all the time, being less powerful.
No. You can only fix 1.
Which three of the 4 problems do you fix in 12 months?
You can only fix 3 of them. Three of them. Yes,
I wouldn't fix the Xbox One being bundled with Kinect because everything else is a positive and people can just choose not to use the Kinect. Big whoop. Everyone's got an Alexa or a Google Home in their houses now anyway.
Yes, correct. Oh, look, I've always said that whole console was ahead of its time. The entire console. I don't know about the US and the UK, but in Australia, Google has started advertising Google TV.
Wow. No, it's not in the UK.
You see Google TV, it's just Xbox One Guide. It's literally Xbox One Guide, Google TV. Like, Microsoft was so ahead of, like, if you could fix one thing about that Xbox One launch, because I am one of the rare people who actually liked the original Xbox One and liked Microsoft's vision for the Xbox One. I'm aware I'm in the minority, but I quite liked it. If you could fix one thing about that whole launch lineup, it would probably just be the messaging. Yeah. It would probably just be the messaging. Like, had they not led with TV, Asa just said they broadcast from OBS. Because they do the podcast in StreamYard. We've both been on it.
They're capturing the browser in StreamYard and using it, and then using OBS to do everything else. Clever. Okay, now we know. And I've just seen, Jesse, the original Xbox One ahead of its time. There's no apostrophe in its in this occasion.
Yes, that's right. There's no apostrophe.
And please use the correct marketing slogan. The Xbox One beta tested in the future.
In the future.
Who thought that crap up, honestly? But yeah, good question, Collingwood. Thank you.
Yes. I don't know. If they shouldn't have led, they shouldn't have led with the TVT stuff. Had they focused on gaming console first, and then talked about the media features and let people discover them.
Yeah, for sure.
The weak part, that was just the whole, the power, the Kinect. That was all just, once that hate train had started, people were just adding carriages.
Yeah.
The online DRM stuff. Yeah, the online DRM and the TV was the start of the train. And then people were like, and it's weaker, and it's more expensive, and Kinect is bundled, and. They were just adding carriages. All of that stuff wouldn't have mattered had they not screwed up the messaging. Because even now, think about how cool it would be to be able to buy a cheap disc for a game, but have a digital copy.
Yeah, I know. Don't get me wrong.
Come on! Like, in
today's modern world, the problem is that they said they had all these ideas and we're gonna do this, but they never showed. And
they would have. They would have. Work. Like, let's be honest. Look at how much they evolved their OS and they evolved their platform. Yeah. Eventually, they would have given us a bunch of retailers to trade in our games. They probably would have updated the Xbox website to allow us to deregister our own discs and go and trade them in or sell them on eBay. It all would have come. But the problem was, you're launching the console. You can't launch it with so many unknowns.
Yeah. And the bigger problem was that they, and look, what they've done now, what they are doing now with Game Pass, with everything, they're achieving their vision. They're just achieving it in the right way, with a consumer focus first on actually giving you a product that is valuable.
Yep.
And then providing the benefits around it. And then when people go, oh wait, this is really cool, I really love it, they win. Right? That's the method behind the madness.
Yep.
But yeah. Oh, it's that time.
Yep. Okay.
Kerry's
time for. Okay. Keris. All right. Hello, everyone. So it was Keris's birthday on the 28th. Not actual birthday, you understand, since I pupated from my larval stage in December. But October the 28th is when I found the strength to reach out to others and find help after trying and failing to take my own life. That's very sad to hear, Keris. I'm glad you did not go through with that. As everyone is more than aware, given how much I bang on about it, Era helped me massively, as did this daft little Xbox community, which for some reason embraced me with its nerdy, stinking underarms. I use deodorant. Especially yours, other Jamie. Good God, mad. Links, really? Wonder who Keris is talking about there. Wonder if that's
Jamie ODST is who she's talking about.
Yes? Okay.
Yeah.
Now, I recall young John mentioning giving back to the community the other day and wanted to do the same for this occasion. I have given €50 this month to both Mermaids and the Samaritans in the UK. I would take the time to entreat the community to reach out to loved ones old and new and give a hug and just reach out. Consider donating a little to a charity of your own choice to spread some love. In that vein, and in keeping with my adoptive country of Germany, where the one with a birthday must make by the cake, Jesus, what is that shit? I would like to give a little more back to the community, which in a small yet significant way helped me this week, last year, and would like to offer on the XboxEra forums a bijou giftet. I should make a thread where the best answer to this week's Pod Keras question from the community will win a 3-month Game Pass Ultimate sub. Since I am reasonably sure I can buy a global one, I figure I pick my top 3, then roll a virtual die to pick the winner, or ask someone else to roll the die. I will leave that choice to a non-drunk and non-participatory grown-up. So, on that note, to the question du jour. Pod panel. We all had dreams in our youth of what our lives would be, how we would turn out. Can you name for me in ascending order the top 3 things you wanted to be when you grew up, and did you ever achieve those dreams? Spoiler alert, no, I did not. For me, it was 3, an astronaut, 2, a lighting technician, 1, Catwoman. And in terms of achievement, nope, yes, nope. Community. Thinking hats on, and the thread may or may not be already live, depending on if I have passed out. Keras.
Great question.
I did. What did I want to be? God, I can't even remember.
Before we answer it, I'll give you a moment to think. But what I will say is a couple of things. One, I'm glad that within this community, and not just from its leadership, i.e. the people that run XboxEra, that the community itself is so great and encouraging and respectful and kind to each other is one thing that is just, as the people that run this, is really, I'm going to swear, fucking cool to see. And 2, because of that charity donation, I've just arbitrarily decided we'll match it, and we'll also donate to the same charities. So Keras, I need to reach out where you did that, but yeah, why not, eh? Happy birthday. But yeah, really, really great gesture. In terms of answering for me, it would be a burglar, a rock star, and doing something in video games. And I'm kind of like, no to burglar. I tried my hand at being a rock star, didn't make it. And hey, I'm trying with the video game things. Let's see where it lands. What about you, Nick?
God, what did I want to be? I'm copying all these comments in the chat. What's this? I'm getting Axe Nick, Yet Nick from Asa. Well, what's everyone talking about? What did I say? Keras said Lynx. In Australia, it's called Lynx.
Lynx. It's called Lynx in the UK.
Right. Yeah, but in the US, it's Axe. And in some parts of Europe, it's Axe.
Product placement. Hashtag
That's Rexona.
ad. I'm using Sure. Sure for men. There you go.
That's the Rexona branding.
Oh, there you go.
So in the UK, Rexona must be Sure. But like in Australia, we have Lynx. But like when I went to Greece, I saw it was called Axe. And I think it's called Axe in the US
Axe
as well.
body spray, yeah. Are you wearing Axe body spray?
That stuff I found attracts flies.
Yeah.
I used to wear it for a while. And I noticed there was a lot more flies buzzing around me when I wore it. So I stopped wearing it and the flies all went away. So there must be something in it that attracts them.
Worse.
I know that's a really weird thing to say.
No, there's nothing worse than at Christmas getting a Lynx Africa gift set. Like, thankfully that stopped when I was about 23. It was like, I am not 15. Stop doing this to me. But yeah, random tangent, but there you go.
Yes. I don't know I can't even remember what I wanted to be. It was so long ago. I'm 41. It was such a long time ago that I was a kid. And I think for a while I wanted to be an architect. And I did end up becoming a graphic designer. So I got close in a way. But that's the only one I remember. I specifically remember architect and ended up becoming a graphic designer for a little while. That was the closest thing. But yeah, that's about it. I'm seeing an old friend in the chat. First time I've seen him in the chat. Frank Zurich. Hi, Frank.
Yeah.
He's I don't know if he's ever even watched the podcast. This is probably the first time he's watched it.
Actually does attract flies and kills them.
I'm telling you, it does. I swear I noticed it, and it's not just because I'm Greek. Like, I immediately noticed that as soon as I started using links, all these flies everywhere. I'm like, this is so weird. And then as soon as I stopped using it, because in my head, I'm like, I know this is strange, but I wonder if it's the links that's attracting these flies. So I stopped using it. Gone. That was it.
Man,
gone.
You should like practical joke and like carry a can and spray other people when they're not paying attention, and then be like, dude,
have
you
all
need to
these
go take
flies
a shower or something.
gravitate towards them.
Why not?
Okay. Next question. We're actually almost done. Unless I've missed some. Kraken56. With the Game Awards quickly approaching, I think Xbox really sees this as a second E3 type event because they have so many eyes on this event, if not more than their E3. The momentum has started with all the recent quality releases, so we should see a lot more games from Xbox being nominated this year. Don't hold your breath. I hope for Hellblade 2 and avowed gameplay of some sort. Those games are scheduled for 2023, most likely. While that is far away, there are games that have gameplay trailers a year and a half or 2 years away. One example during COVID is Gotham Knights had a nice segment of gameplay last year. If they can get some gameplay shown for those two games, I think it will end the year on a fantastic note, showing off gameplay for some big titles that are not Halo, Gears, or Forza. It doesn't have to be like a 10-minute gameplay demo, just a couple of minute trailer with some snippets of polished gameplay. After releasing Halo a day before it lands... After releasing Halo a day before, if it lands well, because we know Forza Horizon 5 will be a hit and would be one of the best years ever for Xbox in terms of releases and optics. My question is, what do you think Xbox is going to show, and in what form will it be in for the Game Awards? You can include other games besides Hellblade because it's been hinted at already. Thanks for the answer and love Max's reaction vids. That was a full-on question.
It was. I mean, what I would say is, yeah, I definitely think you can expect a couple of things from Xbox at the Game Awards. Like, I'm pretty certain we'll get at least two. And I think one will probably be just more trailer / announce or something of that nature. And I think the other may be gameplay focused. It will be just a deeper reveal on an already announced title. I don't think we'll see new announcements.
Surprise.
Yeah, I don't think we'll see. There's enough on their plate right now that we haven't seen. It feels weird to announce something else again that is yet to be seen.
Yeah, but hold on. Let's look at context, yeah? So, who runs the Game Awards?
All right, okay, yeah.
Hold on. Who runs the Game Awards?
Jeff Keighley runs the Game Awards.
Okay. Who's his bestie? Who's
Kojima?
Jeff's bestie?
Yeah.
What are the rumors we are hearing?
Yeah, I know that's super likely. I don't know. I just don't. We've heard rumors.
Like, we're hearing rumors. Like, Jeff Grubb has said they're still negotiating. I don't think the deal is signed yet with Kojima's game. That would be a pretty good stage to announce it.
Sure, but if we're hearing yet that the deal isn't even signed yet, and we're expecting a produced trailer to show it off specifically.
What if it's just a title card? What if it's just a title? Well, hold on a second. The fact that the deal may or may not be signed doesn't mean that the game isn't in existence in some kind. It could still be. Like,
I know.
All it would need is a title card. Let's be honest. All it would need, Kojima comes on stage, hey, I'm working on a game for Xbox. This is what it's called.
Boom.
Bang.
Mic drop.
That's it.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, it's possible. I won't discount it. But yeah.
Like,
that's what we'll see.
Sure, that's right. And if it doesn't make it into this year's Game Awards, then you hold on to it till next year's Game Awards and you have something to show. You don't announce it at E3. You don't announce it at Gamescom. If the deal with Kojima goes through, that has to be a Game Awards announcement. It simply has to be. Like, there's just no choice.
There you go.
So that's my guess. I think they will be trying to get that announcement there. Whether they do or not is another ballgame. If my information is accurate and Killer Instinct is inaccurate in active development, I think that would also be a great place to announce it. Because true. Like Max kept saying, it needs to be bigger. They need to put more money in and it needs to be bigger. And if the Game Awards has more eyes than E3, announce KI there. Announce it there.
Yeah.
Okay. Why not? Okay. Faisal. Hello, friends. Having a look at the excellent questions the other patrons have submitted this week, I was a bit concerned with the lack of Friends content. Not to worry. In order to live up to the excellent title that John has bestowed on me, I'm here for you as the rain starts pouring in Toronto. This week, I was thinking about Season 6, Episode 8, the one with Ross's teeth. It's so funny. What do you think? And he just smiles. He's got those super white teeth. So good. As you know, in order to impress a girl on a date, Ross bleaches his teeth, as one can expect, hijinks ensue on this multi-award-winning, critically acclaimed show. If you remember, at one point she turns off the lights to reveal she has a groovy 60s-inspired neon art in her room. Yeah, she's got a black light. This leads to my question. What time periods do you feel are underrepresented in video games that would be cool to explore? Congrats in advance on hitting 10K. The Roman/Greek period?
Man. What time
World War II?
Yeah, we've done World War II, I think. I would like to see... I mean, man, I like the recent trend of trying to do 90s stuff. But it feels like there's nothing particularly iconic about it. That's the problem with the 90s. The 80s had this real vibe. The 70s had the brown and drab corduroy kind of vibe. The 60s was obviously the 60s. The 50s, Fallout does quite well. It's a real tricky one. I think you'd have to go back way in the past, similar to Nick's sort of suggestion, and do something there. But it's really difficult to kind of think on those lines because it's just, let's do something in mythology or do something in legend. And
I feel like almost everything's covered. Yeah. Just about everything is covered. 80s have been done. 90s have been done. 70s. 70s not so much.
That's because the 70s was really horrible for everybody.
No, 70s were okay. I wasn't alive then, but, I obviously relatives and stuff. I don't know. A lot of the music that came out of the 70s is right up my alley. I'm big on disco.
Yeah.
A lot of the fashion from the 70s jived with me. I used to wear bootleg.
Fan.
I used to wear bootleg pants, like real tight bootleg pants. I've still got some of them. Like I've got some really cool.
Today on things you shouldn't admit online whilst doing a podcast by Nick.
I like that stuff. It's cool. Question that came in 6 minutes ago.
Oh,
not Jack. Have you two been able to try Age of Empires 4 this week? The launch has seemed incredibly successful and it may become a PC staple for a long time. No, I've never been an Age guy, I'll be honest. I've literally never played an Age of Empires game. Almost everyone I know does, though. Nearly everyone I know.
It's a tricky one. I've got it downloaded. I really want to see it in super ultra wide. I'm hoping it supports it. I had it downloaded since it was ready to go. But I was busy building this, so I haven't actually had a chance to click play at all and actually enjoy it, which is frustrating. But I'm sure I'll get some time during the week. But it's But it is what it is. I'm very glad that I have this now, and I don't have to have the big cloth or sit in front of loads of crappy boxes. So it's nice to be in a fresh, clean, modern environment. To do this podcast, so I'm a very happy man. I'll gladly sacrifice Age of Empires 4 for that, but I'll definitely try it later on this week for sure. I just saw a comment from Eric B. I want Xbox to support it on console.
Eric, mate, got a funny feeling they might be looking after you there.
Yeah, let's leave that there.
Got a funny feeling they might be looking after you there. Sir Bloodraven, no rumor mill. I mean,
rumor mill.
I kind of like touched over the rumor mill when I talked about Goldeneye.
Yeah.
And I asked about a couple of things before the show. I'm like, can I do this in the rumor mill? And they're like, no. So I couldn't. I kind of wish I hadn't mentioned the Bloodborne thing, because somehow that sort of weirdly became almost like my rumor when I didn't.
Yeah.
When I flat out said, I'm just sort of corroborating. I'm like, I've heard similar things. But then somehow it weirdly became like when Max talked about Bloodborne on his stream, he didn't mention Millie or Colin Moriarty. He mentioned me. So I'm like, oh no, this
isn't mine.
Mine, and it wasn't mine. It was never my intention to be mine. I wish I hadn't said anything. I didn't realize Max was such a big Bloodborne fan.
There you go.
Yeah, that's probably true. That is probably true. I am a victim of my own success.
I just saw someone tag me on the forums, Beast Mode 10. He told me I need to change my Twitter ID to remove the leading underscores. I would, but I actually follow the existing Sikamikanico, who is an Aussie. And
really?
She's living out there. And yeah, I don't think I'm getting my name.
Does she even use the account?
Yeah, she regularly tweets. I occasionally see them. I'm like, hey, Sikamikanico, how you doing?
Okay, fair enough.
Did you like your Dune poster that I sent you earlier this week?
Yes, that was cool. The Joey Tribbiani Dune poster.
I really want to see that version of the film.
That would be a much better movie too.
Oh, come on now. Dune was excellent.
I still don't get it. I keep seeing everyone go on about this movie, and I'm like, what movie did I watch? Like,
I'm watching Jesse.
It's good. Don't get me wrong.
In the production
I'm not saying it's a bad
box
movie.
going. It's a great movie.
Yeah.
I think the reason so many people love it is because it's like Lord of the Rings for a lot of people. This is one of the beloved first ever big grandiose sci-fi books that was deemed impossible to make into a film, evidenced by the 1984 David Lynch movie, which I watched it again earlier this week, one evening, and my God, after I've been spoiled by June 2021. It's a wow. But if you've been a big fan of those books like you were Lord of the Rings, for a lot of those people, it's a dream come true, and I'm so glad that
from that perspective, I guess.
Sequel. But yeah,
but as someone who never saw the original,
you would come in thinking, what's the hype?
I'm not saying it wasn't a good movie. It was fine.
Yeah.
But like the way people were talking about it, it's like I was expecting
the second coming.
And I just watched 2.5 hours of setup for the second movie. That's basically what I watched. I'm
the good news is I can promise the second movie will be absolutely nuts. There's lots.
It probably will.
Of
and he's a good
stuff.
director. I like the director too.
Fantastic.
And I like Timothy Chalamet, and I like Oscar Isaac. Like all the parts are great. Like when you list what makes up this movie, I saw all of the bits and pieces that make it up. I'm like, oh, this will be a really good movie. And then saw everyone hyping it up and everything. And I'm like, cool, I'll watch it. And it was just kind of, I don't know, it was okay. It's fine.
It's funny. Right. I can see in the chats. I think it was first of all we got a super chat from Agaratos Henosis. I hope I said that right. Great show, dudes, watching from South Australia.
G'day.
And I did see Edward Lafferty in the chat saying, I think the 1984 Dune movie was better. I think the 1984 Dune movie was, honestly, watch it just so you can have a good laugh. It is very dated, right? I grew up on it.
Yeah.
So it's a soft spot for me. You know, I could quote it. I used to watch it with my parents. I was brought up on this kind of stuff. And I still love what it tried to do. But it was, watching it now, a lot of the dialogue is used in June 2021. But June 2021 has the benefit of taking its time, whereas the guy, David Lynch, when he made Dune in 1984, tried to do all of it in 2 hour-ish movie, and it didn't always work. So
yeah, fair enough. Rick Payne brings up a good point. Have we talked about Two Hat yet? So
the
Microsoft finally joined Acquisition
continues.
Season. Hey, they finally got off the bench with Acquisition. That's why I tweeted out. I'm like, can everyone leave me alone now? They acquired someone. And it was technically an Xbox-related acquisition. It was part of GameStack. And they've already been working with Two Hat. When I read into it, I didn't realize they've been working with Two Hat for a long time about moderating community content and stuff like that. And they've acquired them now. Cool.
Yeah.
Good. Leave me alone. Microsoft got involved now.
Interestingly, Microsoft have switched all of their official game community forums over to Discourse, which is what we use on the XboxEra forums. So hopefully people will get used to it a bit more, because I know Zen4O seems to rule the land and people fear change. But yeah, Discourse is great. And I can see, I don't know, I just random tangent. Did you see the whole Timothy Chalamet? He used to run a modded Xbox 360
YouTube channel.
controller.
He's only got He's only got 3 videos on it. I checked that out the other night. He's got 3 controllers. He doesn't show his face. It's just his hands holding the modded controllers. And he's like, I modded this controller and it's blue and it's red.
We all started somewhere, folks. We all start somewhere.
Yeah. And the funny thing is, I think since people discovered that that's his channel, it suddenly went up to like 11,000 subscribers.
So they got more than us with 3 videos.
Yeah. It suddenly got, and all the videos have like 165,000 views. There's only got 3 videos.
It's
so funny.
It's a good segue, right? You know, like we did talk about it earlier in the show, but yes, today live, which was great for it to happen live. We pipped over 10,000 subscribers.
Yes, we finally got there.
And it's a month of milestones. You know, like we've done 10,000 subscribers. We're about to hit 1 million views across the whole channel. How crazy is that? That's a big number. 1 million views on our content. I think that should hit within the next couple of days or a week or so. And we've got a pretty big year coming up. We've got a pretty big end of year. I keep talking about it, but it's so close. I pulled the trigger. Yeah. The trigger's been pulled. Things are happening now that cannot be stopped. They cannot be slowed down. We've got big game reviews in progress and coming. There's just so much to look forward to, and we owe it all to everybody that's watching. I'm sure
we're driving towards a review very soon on a certain game.
Very subtle. Loved it. But yeah,
that was pretty clever wordplay, I have to admit.
I loved it. I think it was great. Could be anything. That's worse.
Big things on our Horsian. On our Horsian.
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 It's a deliberate typo.
That'll throw people.
Yeah, that will get them. Anyway, look, I time traveled. It's now 1:18 instead of 2 a.m.
So that means you and I now okay, because it's 12:18 here. So now it's easier to know what time it is here and there when we're. Correct. That's good. So all you've got to do is for you say, oh, what time is it in Melbourne? Go back an hour and switch from AM to PM or PM to AM.
Yeah, much easier.
I go forward an hour and switch from PM to AM, AM to PM. Very easy to work it out. So don't DM me at 3 a.m. anymore, please.
Is that bad? Do you have your DMs on? Like,
no, I have my phone on night mode anyway, so nothing comes through.
I didn't.
That's why I always say I wake up to pings. I wake up and I check my phone and it says bunch of notifications from Discord. Twitter, I have turned them off because I just get too many now. I have just completely turned them off, but I still get them on Discord.
We're only human. But yeah, there you go. So we'll wrap it there. Thank you everybody for watching and coming with us on this journey through StreamYard, this new method.
Hopefully StreamYard's not too jarring. We'll until we really get to grips with it and customizing it and stuff like that. We may go back just for a bit more to Skype and OBS.
We'll find a healthy balance. And one last thing before I go, because this is pretty cool.
Yes.
and that is Jesse is doing an Extra Life charity stream on Saturday, November the 6th. Now,
yes,
in his modest view, he thought, we're a small channel, really, on Twitch at least. We'll set a small target of just $100 American. And the XboxEra community were like, let's just blow past that, and we'll blow past 200 as well. So he's having to keep it constantly updated, but it's a pinned tweet on our Twitter profile. If you want to go support a good cause and donate to charity for Extra Life, please go and do so. It's for the children, which is always a nice thing to donate money to. And on that note, we'll leave you there. Have a great weekend, what's left of it, and we'll see you all next time.
Ciao for now. Where's the video? See, we're gonna get used to this. I say ciao for now, and I'm waiting for you to do it, but you can't do it. So I'm gonna do it.
I'm waiting for him to do it. Where's our producer when we need him? What's
I know. Okay, everyone, I'll do it. We're gonna.
Okay.
And we're not gonna go with our normal outro because I love that Killer Instinct one. Just
okay, all right.
Too much. And Pre-Drag did an amazing job on that. Okay. Once again, ciao for now.
Jacob! Glacius! Saberwolf!